Get out of my cockpit right now, Captain Blake Harlan shouted, startling everyone on the plane. He pointed straight at Maya's face. I'm giving you 5 seconds to gather up that pile of trash you call luggage and get out of my sight. Maya William did not reach for her bag. She reached for the center display. 5, Harlan barked. Maya tapped the hydraulic page. System 2 is bleeding pressure. I'm 4. She opened the maintenance log with 2 quick touches. The leak was flagged last night. 3. She pointed at the sign-off line. And this record was closed with a technician ID after his shift ended. Harlan stopped counting. Linda Corbett, the senior flight attendant standing at the cockpit door, leaned in. Captain, passengers are still boarding. Then get her out before they see more of this circus. Harlan snapped. Maya kept her eyes on the screen. Captain, if this aircraft pushes back with that pressure trend unresolved, you are taking 163 people into the air on a falsified maintenance release. Harlan lunged forward and slapped the display button off. The screen went dark. For half a second, nobody moved. Then Maya calmly turned it back on. Harlan's face tightened. Touch that panel again and I'll have airport police remove you. Maya pressed one more key. The cockpit printer clicked behind them. A strip of maintenance data began feeding out. I am preserving the record, she said. You are disobeying a direct order. No, Maya said. I am preventing a departure. Harlan snatched the paper from the printer before it finished. He crushed it in his fist. Linda's eyes widened. Captain, stay out of it, he said. Maya looked at the crushed paper, then at the display. The data is still in the aircraft system. Harlan stepped closer until his knee hit the edge of her flight bag. You think you're clever? I think your right rudder response is going to degrade on climb out if hydraulic system 2 keeps dropping. That struck him harder than anger would have. For the first time, Harlan looked at the number. The pressure had fallen again. Not enough to scream. Not enough to flash red. Just enough to tell the truth to anyone willing to read it. Harlan saw it. Maya saw him see it. Then he looked away. Linda, he said. Call Paul. Now. Linda turned sharply and disappeared into the forward galley. Maya reached for the radio. Harlan grabbed her wrist. The cockpit went dead silent. In the first row, a passenger gasped. Maya slowly looked down at his hand on her arm. Then she looked back at him. Remove your hand, Captain. He held on 1 second too long. Then he let go. Maya did not rub her wrist. She did not give him the satisfaction. She keyed the radio. Atlantic Crown Operations, Flight 782 requesting maintenance verification on hydraulic system 2 prior to pushback. Harlan reached over and cut the transmission. Maya turned to him. You just interrupted a safety call. You are not crew on this aircraft. My name is on the crew release. Not anymore. He grabbed the crew tablet from the side pocket and swiped through the roster. His thumb moved too fast, too angry. Maya saw the moment he found her name. M. William, First Officer, Flight 782, DFW to DCA. His jaw clenched. He turned the tablet away. Maya said, "Read it out loud." Harlan threw the tablet onto the jump seat. I don't answer to you. No, she said. But you do answer to that roster. Paul Renner, the gate operations manager, rushed into the doorway with Linda behind him. What's happening? Paul asked. Already sweating, Harlan pointed at Maya. She is interfering with departure and making false claims about maintenance. Maya looked past him. Mr. Renner, pull the overnight maintenance record for hydraulic system 2. Paul hesitated. That hesitation moved through the cockpit like smoke. Maya caught it. Linda caught it. Harlan caught it too, and his voice sharpened. Paul forced a laugh. I'm sure this can be handled after pushback. We're already tight on departure. Maya stood. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough to make everyone understand she was no longer asking. No aircraft leaves this gate with an active pressure loss and a questionable maintenance closeout. Harlan jabbed a finger toward her chest. Sit down. Maya did not. From the forward cabin, an older woman in seat 1A lifted her phone. Linda noticed immediately. Ma'am, you can't record inside the aircraft. The woman did not lower it. Then give me something better to record. Harlan turned toward the cabin. Put that phone away. The woman's voice stayed steady. I served in military hospitals for 31 years. I know panic. I know procedure. And I know bullying. That woman is not panicking. A murmur moved through first class. Harlan spun back to Maya. You see what you're doing? You're alarming passengers. You did that when you shouted, Maya said. Before Harlan could answer, a man in a pilot uniform stood from row 2. Miguel Torres. His face was pale, but he stepped into the aisle. Captain Harlan, he said. She's right to ask for verification. Harlan stared at him. Sit down, Torres. Miguel swallowed. Last year I asked you to verify a fuel imbalance. You wrote me up for attitude. Sit down. No. The word came out small, but it landed big. Paul looked toward the jet bridge. We need to keep this contained. Maya turned to him. Then bring the technician, who signed the release. Paul said nothing. Maya raised her voice just enough to carry through the front cabin. Who released hydraulic system 2 last night? A man in a reflective vest near the aircraft door froze. Daniel Price. Maya saw his face change. Mr. Price, she said. Step forward. Paul moved first. Daniel, stay where you are. Daniel did not. He stepped into view, holding his tablet like it might protect him. Maya asked, Did you close the hydraulic system 2 fault? Daniel's eyes flicked to Paul. Paul said, Careful. Maya said, Look at me. Not him. Daniel looked at her. No, ma'am, he said. I reported the pressure drift. I did not close it. The cabin erupted in whispers. Harlan's voice exploded. That is enough. He reached for the cockpit phone. Airport police. Gate D22. Immediate assistance. We have an unauthorized person in the cockpit refusing to leave. Maya said, Captain, that statement is false. He slammed the phone back. We'll let police decide that. Linda folded her arms, but her confidence had cracked. Paul stepped aside and began whispering into his radio. Daniel backed against the doorway, breathing hard. Miguel stayed in the aisle. The woman in 1A kept recording. Harlan leaned down toward Maya. You had your chance. No, Maya said. You had yours. Heavy footsteps sounded in the jet bridge. 2 airport police officers appeared at the aircraft door. The first officer looked into the cockpit. Ma'am, we need you to come with us. Maya did not answer. A soft ping sounded from her wrist. In the middle of the chaos, the small sound cut through everything. Maya glanced at her Apple Watch. A message from Grandma Ruth appeared on the screen. Do not bow your head to a man who only feels tall when he is standing on someone else. Maya's eyes stayed on the words for one breath. Then she reached into her black flight bag. Harlan smiled. Finally, Maya did not pull out clothes. She did not pull out a resignation letter. She did not pull out fear. She pulled out a slim leather credential case. She opened it and placed it on the center console. The federal seal caught the cockpit light. Maya William, Special Inspector General, Federal Aviation Safety Oversight Division. The first officer at the door stopped moving. Paul Renner lowered his radio. Linda's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Daniel Price closed his eyes like a man hearing a locked door open. Miguel whispered, Oh my God. Harlan stared at the badge, then at Maya, then back at the badge. His face lost its color. Maya picked up the crew tablet, opened the active roster, and turned it toward him. My assignment was valid. My safety concern was valid. The maintenance record was falsified. And you, Captain Harlan, just attempted to remove the federal inspector assigned to examine your cockpit, your crew conduct, and your compliance with safety procedure. Harlan's lips moved before words came. Inspector William, there has been a misunderstanding. Maya stood fully now. No. A misunderstanding is when a man lacks information. You had information. You refused to read it. You had a warning. You refused to verify it. You had a qualified black woman in your right seat, and you chose to see an intruder. The cockpit door felt too small for the silence that followed. Maya turned to the airport police. This aircraft is not pushing back. Treat this cockpit and the maintenance record as part of an active federal safety investigation. No one deletes, edits, replaces, or removes any data from this aircraft. The officer nodded. Yes, Inspector. Harlan flinched at the title. Maya looked at him one last time. Captain Harlan, Step out of the cockpit. He did not move. So Maya said it again, softer this time. Step out. For 30 years, Blake Harlan had made other people leave rooms smaller than this one. Now the whole first-class cabin watched as he removed his headset, set it down with trembling fingers, and walked out past the woman he had tried to throw away. Margaret Wells kept recording. Miguel Torres stood straighter. Daniel Price finally exhaled, and Maya Williams sat back in the right seat. Not because she needed to prove she belonged there, but because the aircraft still had a leak. The passengers still needed protection, and the truth had only just begun to climb. Captain Blake Harlan stopped at the cockpit door as if his body had forgotten how to obey a command not issued by him. For a second, Maya thought he might refuse. His shoulders rose. His right hand curled around the edge of the doorway. The 4 gold stripes on his sleeve caught the light. Still bright, still polished, still meaningless in that moment. The airport police officer shifted his weight. "Captain, the inspector asked you to step out." Harlan turned slowly, not toward the officer, but toward Maya. "You have no idea what you're doing." Maya did not look up from the hydraulic page. "I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm keeping this aircraft on the ground. The pressure drift is minor. It is minor until it isn't. You're grounding a full aircraft over a maintenance note." "No," Maya said. "I'm grounding it over a leak, a falsified sign-off, an interrupted safety call, and a captain who refused to verify any of it." The words moved through the first-class cabin like a cold wind. Passengers leaned into the aisle. Phones rose higher. Linda Corbett stood near the galley with her lips pressed shut so tightly the color had drained from them. Paul Renner kept looking from Maya to the jet bridge, calculating how much of his career had just become public. Harlan lowered his voice. "Inspector William, may I speak with you privately?" "No." His face twitched. Maya turned to the officer. "Please escort Captain Harlan to the jet bridge. He is not to access aircraft systems, crew tablets, maintenance records, or company communication channels until federal safety personnel arrive." Harlan let out a dry laugh. "You're treating me like a criminal. I'm treating the aircraft like evidence." That shut him up. The officer stepped aside and gestured toward the door. Harlan walked out past Linda without looking at her. He passed Margaret Wells in seat 1A, and for the first time since boarding, he seemed to notice her phone. "You better not post that," he said. Margaret held the phone steady. "Captain, you should worry less about the video and more about what's on it." A few passengers murmured approval. Harlan's jaw clenched, but he kept walking. Maya waited until he was off the aircraft. Then she turned back to Paul. "Mr. Renner, close the forward boarding door, but do not detach the jet bridge. I want all passengers kept on board for now, unless medical or personal needs require otherwise. No one is to be told this is a weather delay, crew delay, or operational delay. The reason is safety review." Paul swallowed. "Inspector, with respect, we have a departure slot. If we miss it, we'll be stuck for hours." Maya looked at him. "Then, we'll be stuck for hours alive." He nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am." "Daniel Price," Maya said. Daniel straightened, like someone hearing his name in court. "Yes, ma'am. Bring your maintenance tablet here." "Not to Mr. Renner. To me." Paul turned sharply. "Maya, Inspector. Company procedure requires maintenance issues to go through operations." Maya held out her hand. "Federal investigation supersedes company convenience." Daniel stepped into the cockpit and handed her the tablet. His fingers trembled. Maya noticed, but she did not soften the moment yet. There would be time for kindness later. Right now, truth needed a clean path. She opened the maintenance history. "Show me the original fault report." Daniel reached over carefully and scrolled. "There. At 22:41 last night. Pressure drift observed during post-flight check. I entered requires follow-up inspection before next departure." Maya read it. "And the closeout?" Daniel scrolled again. 2:18. Same technician ID. Mine. But I wasn't on property then. My shift ended at midnight. I clocked out at 07. Who had access to your credentials? Daniel's eyes moved toward Paul. Paul raised both hands. "Absolutely not. Don't look at me like that." Maya did not blink. "Did you give your login to anyone?" "No, ma'am," Daniel said. but supervisors can override if they have the maintenance control code. Who was supervisor on duty? Daniel looked down. Ron Kessler. But he wouldn't have done it without operations pressure. Paul snapped. You don't know that. Daniel turned on him, fear suddenly giving way to anger. I know you called the hangar at 1:30 inches the morning asking why this aircraft was still flagged. I was there when Kessler took the call. Paul's face went flat. In the cabin, Miguel Torres took one step closer. Inspector William, if you need a pilot witness, I saw Captain Harlan cut off your radio call. Maya turned slightly. State your name. Miguel Torres. First officer. Atlantic Crown. Were you assigned to this flight? No, ma'am. Deadheading. Did you hear me request maintenance verification before pushback? Yes. Did you see Captain Harlan interrupt that call? Yes. Did you see him put his hand on me? The cabin went quieter. Miguel's eyes flicked toward Maya's wrist. Yes. Linda suddenly spoke. Captain Harlan was under stress. She was escalating. Margaret Wells laughed once, not with humor. Honey! She was seated. He was shouting. Linda turned toward her. Ma'am, you are interfering with crew duties. Margaret stood, slowly but firmly. No, I'm witnessing them. Maya looked at Linda. Miss Corbett, return to your jump seat. I am the senior flight attendant, and you are now a witness in a federal safety investigation. Sit down. Linda looked as if she had been slapped, but she sat. Maya picked up the cockpit phone and called operations again. This time, no one cut her off. Atlantic Crown Operations, this is Special Inspector General Maya William aboard Flight 782 at Gate D22. This aircraft is grounded pending federal safety review. I need maintenance control locked out of the aircraft record, dispatch notified, and a replacement command crew placed on hold but not assigned until the hydraulic issue is inspected. A male voice answered, suddenly cautious. Inspector William, can you confirm federal authority? Maya read the credential number. There was a pause. When the voice returned, it had changed. Authority confirmed. We are freezing the record now. Also freeze all edits made between midnight and 3 to the maintenance file for this tail number. Understood. And notify your chief safety officer that if this company attempts to classify this as a passenger disturbance, I will treat that as obstruction. Another pause. Understood, Inspector. Maya hung up. Paul wiped his forehead. This is going to create a media disaster. Maya finally turned fully toward him. No, Mr. Renner. The disaster was already created. This is the part where people stop hiding it. A child began crying somewhere in the main cabin. The sound traveled forward, small and frightened. Maya heard it and closed her eyes for half a second. Then she stood and stepped out of the cockpit. The passengers in first class stared at her. Some held phones. Some looked ashamed. Some looked confused. A man in 2C whispered, "Is the plane unsafe?" Maya faced the cabin. She did not smile. She did not perform comfort. She gave them something better. My name is Maya William. I am a Federal Aviation Safety Inspector. This aircraft will not depart until a maintenance irregularity is reviewed by qualified personnel. You are not in immediate danger. You are exactly where you should be, which is on the ground, at the gate, while the issue is addressed. The crying child quieted a little. A woman in row 3 asked, "Were they really going to fly anyway?" Maya paused. That is one of the questions being investigated. Margaret lowered her phone just a little. "Inspector, should we get off?" "Not yet," Maya said. "Deplaning may be necessary, but first I need the aircraft secured and the records preserved. If anyone has medical needs, tight connections, or requires assistance, the crew will help you. But no one will be misled about why this flight is delayed." From the rear, another flight attendant approached. Younger, nervous, her name tag reading Serena. "Inspector William, what do you need us to do?" Linda looked at her sharply, but Serena did not step back. Maya nodded once. "Thank you, Serena. Start with water service. Keep passengers seated for now. Do not speculate. If anyone asks, tell them there is a safety review at the gate, and an official update will follow." "Yes, ma'am." Maya turned back toward the cockpit, but Daniel spoke behind her. "Inspector." She stopped. Daniel's voice cracked. Am I going to lose my job? Paul looked away. Maya studied Daniel's face. She saw the exhaustion there, the shame that did not belong to him, the look of a man who had been forced to choose between truth and rent too many times. Did you falsify the record? No, ma'am. Did you report the issue? Yes. Did someone pressure you to let it go? He nodded. Then today is not the day you lose your job for telling the truth, Maya said. Today is the day we find out who made you afraid to tell it. If you feel for Daniel, for Maya, or for anyone who has ever been afraid to tell the truth because they might lose everything, please like this story and comment where you are watching from, your city, state, or country, because someone near you might be watching this video right now too. Daniel's eyes filled, but he held himself together. Miguel stepped closer to him. You're not the only one. Those words seemed to loosen something in the air. A first-class passenger raised his hand slightly. I heard the captain threaten her before she identified herself. Another said, I recorded him grabbing her wrist. A woman in row 4 said, the flight attendant told us the delay was because the new pilot was unstable. Linda's face went pale. Maya looked at Margaret. Ms. Wells, she said. Margaret Wells. Miss Wells, please preserve your recording. Do not edit it. Someone from the federal team will request a copy. Margaret nodded. I was planning to send it somewhere it couldn't disappear. Good. Outside on the jet bridge. Harlan's voice rose. He was arguing with one of the officers. I am the captain of that aircraft. Maya heard him clearly. So did everyone else. She stepped to the aircraft door. Harlan stood 10 feet away, red-faced, with his cap in one hand and his phone in the other. You cannot remove me from my own flight. Maya looked at him from the doorway. Captain Harlan, Flight 782 is no longer yours. His mouth opened. She continued. It belongs to the passengers whose safety you risked, the crew members you silenced, the technicians you ignored, and the truth you tried to push back from the gate. The officer beside Harlan took his phone gently but firmly. Sir, we need you to come with us. This time, Harlan did not look powerful. He looked trapped inside the uniform he had used as armor. Maya turned away before he could answer. There was still work to do. The hydraulic leak still had to be inspected. The falsified record still had to be traced. The passengers still deserved answers. And somewhere inside the airline's system, someone had believed a signature could be stolen, a warning could be buried, and a young black woman could be shouted out of the cockpit before she became a problem. They had been wrong about all of it. Maya returned to the right seat, opened a new investigation log, and typed the first line herself. Flight 782 held at Gate D22 after attempted removal of federal inspector during active safety concern. Then she added the second line. Aircraft did not depart. Only then did she allow herself one slow breath. The first federal safety team arrived 12 minutes later. They came fast, but not loudly. 3 people in dark jackets stepped onto the jet bridge with badges clipped to their belts and tablets already in their hands. The lead investigator was a square-built woman named Patricia Monroe, who had the calm, unsmiling face of someone who had spent 20 years walking into rooms where everyone had already begun lying. Maya met her at the cockpit door. Inspector William, Monroe said. Agent Monroe. Aircraft is secured. Hydraulic System 2 shows a continued pressure drift. Maintenance record was closed under Daniel Price's technician ID after his shift ended. Captain Harlan interrupted a safety call, ordered my removal, and requested airport police. Monroe glanced once toward the cabin. Passengers still on board? For now. They have been informed this is a safety review. No false delay reason has been given. Good. Monroe looked past her into the cockpit. Who touched the systems after the aircraft was grounded? No one. I stayed in the right seat until your arrival. Monroe nodded. Then let's make sure it stays that way. Within minutes, the mood of Flight 782 changed. It was no longer a delayed flight. It was an investigation with wings still attached. One agent photographed the cockpit displays. Another pulled the maintenance data. A third stood by the forward galley and began taking names from passengers who had recorded the confrontation. Serena, the younger flight attendant, moved through the cabin with cups of water and the kind of careful kindness that made people lower their voices. Linda Corbett did not move. She sat on the forward jump seat, with her hands folded so tightly her knuckles had turned white. When Monroe asked for her statement, Linda lifted her chin and said, "I was following the captain's instructions." Maya stood 3 feet away. She did not interrupt. Monroe looked up from her tablet. "Did the captain instruct you to tell passengers the new pilot was unstable?" Linda blinked. "I don't remember using those words." A man in row 4 raised his phone. "I do." Linda's eyes snapped toward him. Monroe turned. "Sir, please preserve that recording. Do not send it to anyone yet." The man nodded. "Already saved to cloud." Linda's face fell another shade. At the aircraft door, Paul Renner tried a different strategy. He spoke quietly to one of the agents, smiling the way managers smile when they think tone can soften evidence. "We all want safety, but this has become more dramatic than necessary. Captain Harlan is old school. He can be blunt. That doesn't mean there was intent." Daniel Price heard him from the galley. Something changed in Daniel's face. For the first time that morning, he stepped forward without being called. He knew. Paul turned sharply. "Daniel." Daniel ignored him. He looked at Maya, then at Monroe. "Captain Harlan knew there was a hydraulic flag last night. I heard operations tell maintenance control he didn't want another delay on his record. Then the fault closed after I left." Paul's mouth tightened. "That is speculation." Daniel held up his tablet. His hands were still shaking, but his voice had steadied. "No, it's a message thread. I took screenshots because I knew they'd blame me if something happened." The cabin seemed to inhale all at once. Monroe extended her hand. "Give me the tablet." Paul took one step toward Daniel. "You are violating company confidentiality." Maya moved between them before anyone else could react. "No, Mr. Renner. He is protecting federal evidence." Paul stopped. Daniel handed the tablet over. Monroe read for less than 30 seconds. Her expression did not change, but the air around her did. "Inspector William," she said, "you need to see this." Maya took the tablet. The thread was short, ugly, clear, pressure drift still active, needs inspection before departure. Then a reply from a maintenance supervisor. "Ops says close it. Harlan refuses another mechanical delay." Then another message, from Paul Renner's number. "We need 782 clean by morning. Use existing tech ID. I'll handle questions." Maya looked at Paul. He had gone completely still. For all his sweating and smiling, for all his talk about departure slots and media disasters, he had believed the danger was abstract until the words on that tablet made it personal. Monroe turned to the officer standing near the jet bridge. "Mr. Renner is not to leave." Paul's voice cracked. "I need to call legal." "You will," Monroe said, "after we secure your devices." In the first row, Margaret Wells lowered her phone and whispered, "Lord have mercy." Miguel Torres stood beside Daniel now. He did not say anything. He just stayed there, close enough for Daniel to know he was not alone. Then the aircraft shuddered. It was small, barely more than a tremor through the floor. But Maya felt it in her feet before anyone spoke. A second later, an amber caution appeared on the panel. HIDSYS 2 low press. The cabin did not know what the light meant. Maya did. So did Monroe. So did Daniel. Harlan had called it minor. Paul had called it manageable. Someone had tried to close it in the dark and send the aircraft into the morning sky. Now, sitting safely at the gate, with the parking brake set and the jet bridge attached, the aircraft finally said out loud what Maya had seen coming. Daniel stared at the cockpit. That would have happened after pushback. Maya's eyes stayed on the warning. Or after takeoff. No one answered. There are moments when truth does not need drama, because the evidence arrives by itself. This was one of them. Monroe spoke into her radio. "Flight 782 is now hard grounded. Request full deplaning, replacement aircraft, and immediate technical quarantine of this tail number." Maya stepped back into the cabin. Every passenger looked at her. She did not hide the seriousness, but she did not feed fear. "Ladies and gentlemen, this aircraft will not be departing. A system warning has confirmed the need for inspection. You are safe. You are at the gate." The crew will deplane you in an orderly manner, and the airline will provide further arrangements. A man in row 2 asked. So she was right? No one had to ask who he meant. Maya gave a small nod. The data was right. My job was to listen to it. Margaret Wells stood slowly. And his job was to listen to you. The words were quiet, but half the cabin heard them. Linda looked down at the floor. Serena opened the forward service area and began helping passengers gather their things. This time, no one rushed. People moved carefully, as though stepping away from something they had almost not survived. A mother held her child tighter. A businessman who had complained earlier about missing a meeting stopped beside Maya and said, "I'm sorry. I thought this was just some argument." Maya answered, "Most dangerous things look small at first." He nodded and walked off. When Margaret reached the door, she paused. "Inspector William, I have the full recording from the moment he started counting." "Thank you, Miss Wells." Margaret looked toward the cockpit, then back at Maya. "My granddaughter wants to fly helicopters. I hope she meets more women like you than men like him." Maya's face softened for the first time that morning. "Tell her the sky has room for her." Margaret smiled, then left the aircraft. Miguel was next. He stopped at the cockpit threshold. "I should have spoken sooner." Maya looked at him. "You spoke today. It took me a year, but you did it before the aircraft moved." Miguel swallowed hard. "Will that matter?" "It already does." Daniel stayed behind until the last passengers had gone. He looked at the empty seats, the abandoned napkins, the overhead bins hanging open. "If you hadn't been here," Maya finished the thought for him because he could not, "then the warning still would have been there. The leak still would have been real. The only difference is who chose to ignore it." Daniel nodded, eyes wet. "I was scared. So was everyone," Maya said. "Fear is not the failure. Letting fear sign your name to a lie is." Outside on the jet bridge, Harlan stood with 2 officers and Agent Monroe. He no longer looked angry. Anger required control, and control had left him. He looked smaller now, not because Maya had made him small, but because the truth had removed the extra height he had borrowed from other people's silence. As Maya stepped off the aircraft, Harlan looked at her one last time. "You ended my career." Maya stopped. "No, Captain. I interrupted it while it was endangering people. What happens next will be decided by what you did before I ever sat in that seat." He had no answer. Behind her, inside the quiet aircraft, the amber warning still glowed. Maya turned away and walked down the jet bridge with the investigation file pressed under one arm. Flight 782 had never left Dallas. Its wheels had never moved from the gate. But by noon, the truth would be moving through every office at Atlantic Crown Airways, through every closed complaint, every buried warning, every young pilot who had been told to sit down and be grateful. The aircraft stayed on the ground. The silence did not. By 12:14 p.m., Atlantic Crown Airways stopped calling it a delay. That was the first victory, not the loudest one, not the one passengers would remember. But Maya noticed it the moment the updated message appeared on the gate display. Flight 782 to Washington, D.C. no longer said delayed due to crew availability. It said, "Safety review in progress. See agent for rebooking." Maya stood 20 feet away from the gate desk, watching travelers line up with boarding passes in their hands and fear still sitting behind their eyes. Some were angry, most were shaken. A few looked back toward the aircraft as if it might have followed them into the terminal. Paul Renner was no longer at the counter. 2 federal officers had taken him to a small conference room near operations. His radio, tablet, and phone were sealed in evidence bags. He had asked 3 times for airline legal. He had received the same answer 3 times. After the devices were secured, Captain Harlan had been moved to another room. Linda Corbett sat alone near the window, no longer in control of any aisle, any cabin, or any story. She stared at her hands. Every few seconds, she looked up to see who was watching her. The answer was always the same. Everyone. Agent Patricia Monroe came out of the jet bridge with Daniel Price's tablet tucked under her arm. "The aircraft is quarantined. Maintenance control is locked out. We pulled the data before anyone could touch it." Maya nodded. "Hydraulic line? Preliminary inspection shows seepage at the actuator junction. Slow leak. Hard to catch if you don't care to catch it. And if it had departed? Monroe looked toward the windows, where the aircraft sat motionless at the gate. Best case, they return after a warning and climb. Worst case, degraded response during a workload-heavy phase. Either way, it had no business leaving. Maya absorbed that, without expression. She had already known. But knowing and hearing it confirmed were two different weights. A commotion rose at the gate desk. A man in a Navy suit slammed his palm on the counter. "I have a congressional meeting at 3. You people need to put us on another plane right now." The gate agent, a young woman whose name tag read Alicia, kept her voice steady. "Sir, we are rebooking passengers as quickly as possible. This is unacceptable." Maya stepped closer. "Sir," he turned, ready to aim his anger at someone else. Then he saw her badge. The anger stalled, but did not vanish. "Are you in charge of this mess?" "I am in charge of the reason you're still alive enough to complain about it." The line went quiet. The man blinked. "Excuse me?" Maya did not raise her voice. "The aircraft you boarded showed a confirmed hydraulic warning after we held it at the gate. You will miss your meeting. You did not miss your life." His mouth closed. Alicia looked down quickly, hiding the smallest possible smile. The man stepped back. "I didn't know." "No," Maya said. "Most passengers never do. That is why the people who do know have to tell the truth." He nodded once, embarrassed now, and returned to the line. Maya turned to Alicia. "Are you getting support?" Alicia gave a tired laugh. "They sent one extra agent. Then they sent a supervisor to tell us not to use the word safety unless approved." Maya's eyes hardened. "Who said that?" Alicia pointed across the gate with her chin. A regional customer service supervisor stood near the wall, speaking into a phone, one hand covering his mouth. Maya walked over. He saw her coming and straightened. "Inspector William, I was just coordinating messaging." "No," Maya said. "You were trying to dilute it." He froze. "Every passenger from Flight 782 will be told the same thing. The aircraft was held for a safety review. A mechanical warning confirmed the hold was necessary. Rebooking and lodging will be provided where needed. No one will be told this was crew availability, weather, air traffic, or a paperwork issue." The supervisor swallowed. "Corporate communications usually approves. Corporate communications is not on that aircraft." "I was." He lowered the phone. "Understood. Say it back." His face tightened with humiliation. "Passengers will be told the aircraft was held for a safety review. A mechanical warning confirmed the hold was necessary, and rebooking and lodging will be provided." "Good." Maya turned away before he could add anything safe and useless. Near the windows, Miguel Torres stood with Daniel Price. They were not speaking. They did not have to. They stood like two men who had spent years alone in the same storm, and had only now discovered each other under the same roof. Maya approached them. Daniel looked up first. "They're going to say I leaked company messages." "They can say it," Maya replied. "They cannot punish you for preserving evidence in a federal safety matter." Miguel shook his head. "You haven't worked inside Atlantic Crown long enough. They don't punish all at once. They wait. Bad schedule, bad base transfer, bad review. Then they say it's performance." Maya looked at him. "Who did that to you?" Miguel's face changed. The answer was too large for one name. "Harlan started it," he said. "But others let it stand. Then others will answer for it." Daniel gave a bitter laugh. "People like us don't usually get that part." Maya turned toward the aircraft. "Today you do." Before either man could respond, Margaret Wells walked back toward them, her phone in one hand and a paper cup of coffee in the other. "Inspector William." Maya faced her. "Miss Wells, I sent the recording to Agent Monroe's secure link. Full file. No edits." "Thank you." Margaret nodded toward Linda. "That flight attendant tried to stop me 3 times before you showed the badge." "I know." She looked at me like I was the problem. Maya followed Margaret's glance. Linda had dropped her head again. "People who build their comfort on other people's silence always think the first witness is the threat." Margaret studied Maya for a moment. "You talk like your grandmother raised you right." Despite herself, Maya almost smiled. She did. "Good. Mine raised me to keep receipts." Margaret lifted her phone slightly. Different words. Same lesson. Maya's smile appeared then. Brief but real. Agent Monroe called her from the conference room door. "Inspector, we have Harlan ready for preliminary statement." Maya walked with her through a service hallway that smelled of coffee, printer toner, and old carpet. The room where Harlan waited was too bright. A square table, 4 chairs, a wall clock, no window. Harlan sat with his cap on the table in front of him. Without it, his hair looked thinner. His uniform remained perfect, but the man inside it had started to come apart. His airline representative sat beside him, speaking softly. Harlan was not listening. Maya entered. He looked up. For a moment, she saw the old reflex return. The need to dominate. The need to speak first. "You set me up," he said. Maya sat across from him. "No." I sat down. "You came in under false pretenses." "I came in under authorized federal inspection protocol. You pretended to be my first officer. I was assigned as your first officer." He leaned forward. "You wanted me to fail." Maya held his gaze. "Captain, I gave you 5 chances to succeed. Look at the screen. Call dispatch. Verify the roster. Call maintenance. Stop shouting. You refused all 5. His representative touched his arm. "Blake." Harlan pulled away. "You don't understand command." "I understand command very well," Maya said. "Command is not ownership. It is responsibility. The cockpit was never your kingdom. It was your duty station." The words hit him. He looked down at his cap. "I made a judgment call." "No," Maya said. "You made a character call. You looked at me and decided I was less credible than your assumption. Then you protected that assumption harder than you protected the airplane." His face flushed again. But this time, it did not become rage. It became something weaker, something cornered. "I didn't know who you were. That is the only reason this investigation matters," Maya said. "Because you should not have needed to know." Silence filled the room. Harlan looked away first. Agent Monroe began the formal questions. Time, sequence, exact words, who authorized the maintenance closeout, why he refused the safety call, whether he touched Maya's wrist, whether he called airport police before verifying the crew roster. At first, Harlan denied small things. Then Monroe played Margaret's video. His own voice filled the room. "Get out of my cockpit right now. I'm giving you 5 seconds. Touch that panel again, and I'll have airport police remove you." Harlan stared at the table while the recording played. The words sounded uglier when they were no longer protected by adrenaline. Maya watched him listen to himself. That was often the first punishment truth delivered. Not consequence. Recognition. When the video ended, Harlan's representative closed his folder. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Harlan said quietly, "I want to amend my statement." Monroe tapped her tablet. "Go ahead." He swallowed. "I did not verify her assignment." "Why not?" Monroe asked. Harlan's eyes flicked to Maya, then away. "I assumed there had been a mistake." Maya's voice was calm. "What made you assume that?" He did not answer. The clock ticked once, twice. Finally, Harlan said, "She didn't look like the first officer I expected." There it was. Not shouted. Not dressed up. Not hidden behind policy. The room went still around the truth. Maya stood. Harlan looked up, startled. "That's it? For now?" she said. "You're leaving?" "Yes. I have passengers to protect and a system to examine. You were only the doorway." She walked out before he could decide whether to be angry or ashamed. Back at the gate, passengers were being rebooked. Alicia was explaining the safety review clearly. Serena was helping an elderly couple find wheelchairs. Daniel was giving Agent Monroe access to his backup screenshots. Miguel was writing a statement on his phone, thumbs moving slowly but steadily. Maya stopped near the window. Flight 782 still sat at the gate, surrounded now by maintenance crews and federal personnel. It looked ordinary from the outside. That was the frightening part. So many dangerous things did. Maya's watch pinged again. This time it was another message from Grandma Ruth. "You still standing?" Maya looked at the aircraft, then at the people around the gate who had begun, one by one, to stop whispering and start telling what they knew. She typed back with one thumb, "Yes, ma'am." And I'm not standing alone anymore. By late afternoon, the story had already escaped the airport. Not because Maya released it. Not because Margaret posted the video. Not yet. It escaped the way truth often does in crowded places, through whispers, half-sent texts, passengers calling spouses, gate agents talking in low voices, a businessman telling someone, "You're not going to believe what happened on my flight," while standing in line for a rebooking voucher. At 4:37 p.m., Atlantic Crown Airways issued its first statement. Maya read it on Agent Monroe's tablet while standing inside a small operations office with bad lighting and a coffee machine that sounded like it was choking. Atlantic Crown Airways is aware of an operational disruption involving Flight 782 from Dallas, Fort Worth to Washington, D.C. The flight was delayed due to a maintenance review and crew coordination matter. We are cooperating with all relevant authorities and remain committed to safety. Maya read it once, then again. Agent Monroe watched her face. "You want to call them?" "No," Maya said. "I want them in this room." 20 minutes later, 3 Atlantic Crown executives arrived from the regional office. They came in polished shoes, expensive watches, and expressions carefully built for crisis. The highest ranking among them was Warren Pike, Vice President of Operations. He entered first, hand extended. "Inspector William." "Warren Pike. We appreciate your professionalism today." Maya did not take his hand. He let it fall. She placed the tablet on the table and turned it toward him. "Did you approve this statement?" Pike glanced at it. "Communications drafted it in consultation with legal." "That was not my question." His smile thinned. "Yes, I reviewed it." Maya nodded. "Then, explain." "Crew coordination matter." Pike shifted. "It's standard language until the facts are fully established. The facts are established enough to say the aircraft was grounded because of a verified hydraulic warning and a falsified maintenance closeout. Our concern is avoiding premature conclusions." "No," Maya said. "Your concern is avoiding plain English." One of the legal officers, a woman with a silver briefcase, leaned forward. "Inspector, we have to consider liability." Maya looked at her. "So do I. Mine includes 163 passengers who were almost pushed back on a compromised aircraft because your people preferred a clean departure board over a clean safety record." The room went still. Pike tried again. "We understand the seriousness." "Do you?" Maya asked. No one answered. She tapped the statement. "This reads like something went wrong with scheduling. It does not say the captain refused to review a live system anomaly. It does not say a maintenance record was closed under a technician's ID after his shift ended. It does not say a federal inspector was shouted out of a cockpit and nearly removed by police before revealing her credentials. It does not say passengers were misled by a crew member. It does not say the company has frozen records because internal data may have been altered." The legal officer's mouth tightened. "We cannot accuse employees publicly before due process." "Then don't name them," Maya said. "Name the conduct." Pike stared at her. "You're asking us to damage our own company. I'm asking you to stop pretending the damage began when someone noticed." That landed. For the first time, Warren Pike looked less like an executive and more like a man who had been handed a bill for years of unpaid truth. Agent Monroe slid another tablet across the table. "We also pulled complaint summaries involving Captain Harlan for the last 4 years. 15 internal reports, 7 closed without interview, 4 marked personality conflict, 2 safety concerns downgraded to communication style, 1 attached to Miguel Torres's file." Pike looked at the screen but did not touch it. Maya watched him carefully. "How many of those crossed your desk?" His silence was the answer. The legal officer turned to him. "Warren." He rubbed his forehead. "Some." "How many?" Maya asked. "I don't know offhand." "Guess." He exhaled. "Most." Maya sat back. Then Flight 782 was not a surprise. It was a scheduled consequence. No one spoke for several seconds. Outside the glass wall, gate agents continued rebooking passengers. A mother rocked a sleeping child against her shoulder. Miguel Torres sat near Daniel Price, helping him organize screenshots by timestamp. Margaret Wells stood at a charging station, phone plugged in, eyes alert, as if guarding something sacred. Pike followed Maya's gaze. That video will ruin us if it goes public without context. Maya turned back. Then provide context before it does. We need time. You had years. His face hardened. Inspector William, with respect, you do not run Atlantic Crown Airways. No, Maya said. But today, I can stop it from lying. Pike looked at Agent Monroe, then at the legal officer. The old machinery inside him was still running, searching for the safest phrase, the narrowest admission, the version of truth that could pass through a boardroom without staining the carpet. Maya saw it. She leaned forward. Mr. Pike, in a few hours, every passenger from that aircraft will be home or in a hotel with a story. Some have video, some have audio. Your employees have screenshots. Federal investigators have the maintenance trail. You have one choice left: lead with the truth or get dragged behind it. The legal officer whispered, Warren, she's right. Pike closed his eyes. When he opened them, something in him had given way. What does the statement need to say? Maya did not smile. Start with what happened. By 6:02 p.m., Atlantic Crown released a second statement. This one was shorter. Flight 782 was held at the gate today, after a federal aviation safety inspector identified an unresolved hydraulic system concern and a questionable maintenance record. The aircraft later displayed a warning confirming the need for inspection. The flight did not depart. We are cooperating with federal authorities, preserving all records, and have placed involved personnel on administrative leave pending investigation. We apologize to our passengers for the disruption and for any communication that failed to reflect the seriousness of the safety review. Maya read it twice. It was not perfect, but it did not hide. That mattered. At 6:19 p.m., Margaret Wells finally posted a short clip. Not the whole video. Just 42 seconds. Harlan shouting. Maya pointing to the screen. Harlan threatening police. Then Maya's badge on the console. The caption was simple. She saved our flight before they knew who she was. By 6:45, the clip had thousands of views. By 7:10, national aviation reporters were calling. By 7:30, Atlantic Crown's board scheduled an emergency meeting. Maya was still at the airport. She sat alone for the first time that day in a quiet corner near an empty gate, her flight bag at her feet, her jacket folded over one arm. Her body had begun to feel the weight of the morning. Her wrist ached where Harlan had grabbed her. Her throat was dry. Her head pulsed from too much light, too many voices, too much held-in anger. Her watch pinged again. Grandma Ruth. I saw a woman on the news who looked a lot like my grandbaby. Maya closed her eyes. Then the second message appeared. She was sitting straight. Maya laughed softly, but it came out almost like a breath-breaking. She called. Ruth answered on the first ring. You eat anything today? Maya looked at the vending machine across the gate. Not enough. That means no. I'm fine, Grandma. Don't lie to old women. We raised the people who invented lying. Maya leaned back in the chair. For the first time all day, her shoulders dropped. It got ugly. I saw. They tried to remove me. I saw that too. I almost waited too long to show the badge. No, baby, Ruth said. You waited long enough for the room to show itself. Maya swallowed. Across the concourse, she could see Daniel standing with Agent Monroe. He looked tired, but he no longer looked hunted. Miguel was giving a recorded statement, speaking slowly, but not backing down. Serena, the young flight attendant, was helping Alicia at the gate desk, explaining hotel vouchers to an elderly couple. Margaret Wells was surrounded by passengers who had once been strangers and now seemed bound by the same narrow escape. Ruth's voice softened. You still standing? Maya looked at them all. Yes, ma'am, she said. And I'm not standing alone anymore. Good. Then stand long enough for the next one. Maya did not answer right away, because that was always the part nobody put in headlines. The next one, the next young pilot, the next technician, the next passenger, the next person told they were the problem because they noticed the danger first. When she ended the call, Agent Monroe was walking toward her. You should see this, Monroe said. She handed Maya a tablet. It showed an internal dashboard from Atlantic Crown's safety reporting system. Complaints, incident reports, closed findings. Names, routes, dates. Harlan's name appeared again and again, but he was not alone. Linda Corbett's name appeared in passenger complaints across 4 routes. Paul Renner appeared in delay override notes tied to maintenance flags. 3 other captains had patterns that looked too familiar. 2 supervisors had closed reports without interviews. A senior manager had approved category reductions on safety events that should have triggered review. Maya scrolled once, then stopped. This is bigger than Flight 782. Monroe nodded. Much bigger. Maya stood. The exhaustion did not leave. It simply moved aside for duty. Freeze the whole dashboard, she said. All complaint closures for 5 years. Safety downgrades, maintenance overrides, crew conduct reports, retaliation claims. If they edited 1 aircraft record, they may have edited more. Monroe was already typing. I'll get the order. Maya looked through the window toward the grounded aircraft, now dark inside. Its cockpit empty, its warning captured, its silence finally useful. That morning, Harlan had given her 5 seconds to disappear. By nightfall, those 5 seconds had opened 5 years of buried records. Maya picked up her flight bag. She had not come to destroy a company. She had come to see whether it was still capable of telling the truth. Now she had her answer. And tomorrow, she would make sure the country heard it. By 8 the next morning, Atlantic Crown Airways had run out of soft words. The emergency board meeting started on the 23rd floor of the company's Dallas Operations Center, in a glass conference room built to make bad decisions look clean. The table was long, the coffee was fresh, and every screen on the wall showed some version of Maya Williams' face beside the same headline. Federal inspector grounded flight after captain tried to remove her from cockpit. Maya stood at the far end of the room with Agent Monroe beside her. Warren Pike sat halfway down the table, looking as if he had not slept. The CEO, Thomas Greer, kept both hands folded in front of him. He had the smooth voice of a man who had spent years calming investors without changing much underneath. Inspector William, Greer began. First, let me say we are grateful. Flight 782 remained safely on the ground. Maya did not sit. That gratitude should begin with the technician who reported the fault and the passengers who witnessed what your crew tried to hide. Greer's face tightened, but he nodded. Of course, we intend to cooperate fully. That phrase has been used 3 times since I entered the building, Maya said. Cooperation is not a phrase. It is access. Agent Monroe placed a tablet on the table. We are issuing a preservation demand for all safety reports, maintenance overrides, crew complaints, passenger discrimination complaints, scheduling retaliation claims, and internal investigation closures for the past 5 years. One board member, a thin man with silver glasses, leaned forward. 5 years seems excessive. Maya looked at him. A falsified maintenance closeout nearly put 163 people in the air yesterday. If that feels excessive to you, we should start with your emails. No one else questioned the timeline. Greer cleared his throat. We will provide what is legally required. Maya stepped closer to the table. No. You will provide what is required before legal teaches people how to forget. Devices will be preserved. Deletions will be flagged. Employees will be informed in writing that retaliation is prohibited. Every person who filed a complaint involving Captain Harlan, Linda Corbett, Paul Renner, or maintenance control will be contacted by an independent team, not your internal supervisors. Warren Pike looked down at his hands. Greer noticed. Warren? Pike did not answer at first. Then he said, She's right. The room shifted. Greer turned slowly. Excuse me? Pike raised his eyes. We buried too much. Not always by deleting things. Sometimes by renaming them. Safety concern became communication gap. Bias complaint became personality conflict. Retaliation became scheduling need. We made the word smaller until the problem looked smaller. Maya watched him carefully. Truth from a cornered executive could be conscience or survival. Sometimes it was both. Greer's voice went cold. This is not the time for broad statements. Pike gave a tired laugh. Thomas, yesterday a federal inspector caught a captain trying to fly a bad aircraft after he tried to throw her out of the cockpit. If this isn't the time, there isn't one. For the first time, the boardroom had no script. Maya used the silence. Here is what happens next. Captain Blake Harlan remains removed from flight duty pending certificate review. Linda Corbett remains on administrative leave pending investigation into crew conduct and passenger communications. Paul Renner remains under investigation for maintenance record interference. Maintenance Control Supervisor Ron Kessler is to be suspended from system access immediately. Greer said, "We cannot simply suspend everyone named without internal review." Agent Monroe slid a printed screenshot across the table. Mr. Kessler used Daniel Price's technician ID at 218. Mr. Renner's message instructed him to use an existing tech ID. That is not a rumor. That is evidence. Greer did not touch the paper. Maya said, "You will also reinstate protected status for Daniel Price and Miguel Torres by noon today. Their files will be locked. Any schedule change, supervisor note, performance review, or disciplinary action involving them will require external review." A woman on the board, the only one who had not spoken, finally leaned forward. Her nameplate read Evelyn Shaw. And the passengers? Maya turned to her. Full reimbursement, rebooking, written acknowledgement that they were delayed due to a validated safety concern, not vouchers wrapped in apology language. Truth, in writing. Evelyn nodded. That part we can do today. Greer looked irritated. We can discuss compensation levels. Evelyn looked at him. No, Thomas. We can do that today. Another crack in the room. Maya saw it. So did Monroe. The company was no longer a single wall. It was becoming a set of people deciding which side of the wall they wanted to be found on. At 10:26 a.m., the first internal memo went out to all Atlantic Crown employees. Federal safety investigation active. Record preservation mandatory. Retaliation prohibited. Employees may report directly to the independent review team. By 10:41, the hotline received its first call. By noon, it had received 27. By 3 p.m. 74. Maya spent the afternoon in a temporary office near the operations floor, reading summaries as they came in. A black gate agent in Phoenix who had been written up after refusing to move a family from first class without cause. A female first officer in Denver who had stopped reporting Harlan's comments because her chief pilot told her, "You know how Blake is." A mechanic in Charlotte who said maintenance flags were routinely pressured before holiday weekends. A flight attendant in Seattle who had been told to smile through it when passengers complained about her accent. Each report was a small door opening. Behind every door was someone who had been waiting to be believed. At 4:12 p.m., Daniel Price entered the office, with Miguel Torres beside him. Daniel held a paper cup of coffee in both hands. Miguel looked less pale than the day before, but not less serious. Maya stood. "You both okay?" Daniel gave a weak shrug. "Depends what okay means," Miguel said. "We got the memo. Protected status. It should have existed before you needed it," Maya said. Daniel looked at the floor. "Ron Kessler called me." Maya's expression changed. "When?" 20 minutes ago. From a personal number. Said, "I should remember who trained me." Miguel's jaw tightened. "That's a threat." Maya held out her hand. "Give me the number." Daniel handed her his phone. She copied it, forwarded it to Monroe, then looked back at him. "You did the right thing bringing this here." Daniel exhaled. "I almost didn't, but you did." Miguel glanced toward the glass wall, where investigators moved between desks. "What happens to Harlan?" Maya did not soften it. "His certificate review will decide whether he ever commands a commercial aircraft again. The company investigation will decide his employment. The federal investigation will decide whether safety violations become enforcement action." Miguel nodded slowly. "I thought hearing that would feel better." "It rarely does," Maya said. "Accountability is not the same as healing." Daniel looked at her. "Then what is?" Maya thought of her grandmother's message. She thought of Margaret's steady phone. She thought of the amber warning glowing in an empty cockpit. "Being able to tell the truth without lowering your voice," she said. Neither man spoke. At 6 p.m., Atlantic Crown held a press briefing, not in the boardroom. Maya refused that. It happened in the main training hangar, with an aircraft behind the podium and employees standing along the walls. Mechanics, gate agents, flight attendants, pilots, people who kept planes moving and people who had been blamed when they refused to move them too fast. Thomas Greer stepped to the microphone first. He looked smaller under hangar lights than he had in the conference room. Yesterday, Flight 782 did not depart because a serious safety concern was identified at the gate. That concern was valid. A maintenance record had been improperly closed. A captain failed to follow appropriate verification procedures. A federal inspector was treated in a manner that was unacceptable, unprofessional, and inconsistent with the safety culture we claim to uphold. Cameras clicked. Greer swallowed. We apologize. To the passengers, to Inspector Maya William, to our employees who raised concerns and were not heard, and to every person who trusted us to do better before yesterday, forced us to begin. It was not beautiful, but it was plain, and plain was more than the company had offered before. Then Maya stepped forward. She did not plan to speak long. This investigation is not about one man's bad temper, she said. It is about what happens when a company teaches people that being on time matters more than being honest. It is about what happens when bias is excused as personality, when fear is mistaken for discipline, and when the person who notices danger is treated like the danger. The hangar was silent. Maya looked toward the employees gathered along the wall. To every pilot, mechanic, gate agent, flight attendant, dispatcher, cleaner, and passenger who has ever been told to sit down, be quiet, stop making trouble, or trust someone who refused to show you the truth. This is your reminder. Safety begins when silence ends. No one clapped at first. Then Margaret Wells, standing near the back with her phone lowered for once, brought her hands together. Daniel followed. Then Miguel. Then the sound moved through the hangar, not like celebration, but like release. Maya stepped away from the microphone. Her watch pinged. Grandma Ruth again. Saw you on TV. You ate yet? Maya stared at the message, and for the first time in 2 days, she laughed out loud. Agent Monroe leaned in. Good news? Maya shook her head, still smiling. Orders from higher authority. Then she looked across the hangar at the people still applauding. The people still scared. The people who had finally started speaking. And she knew the hardest part was still coming. Grounding one aircraft had taken minutes. Grounding a culture that taught people to lie would take much longer. But Flight 782 had not left the gate. And now neither would the truth. The applause in the hangar did not last long. It never does when people realize clapping is easier than changing. By the next morning, Atlantic Crown's temporary hotline had received 186 reports. By noon, that number passed 300. By evening, Maya stopped asking for the count and started asking for patterns. Agent Monroe spread the summaries across a conference table in the training center. Names were redacted. Dates were not. Routes were not. Departments were not. Maya stood over the table with a red marker in her hand. Denver, Phoenix, Charlotte, Seattle, Dallas, Monroe said, tapping each stack. Same themes. Retaliation after safety reports. Crew complaints downgraded. Maintenance flags closed under pressure. Bias complaints marked as attitude problems. Maya drew a circle around one name that appeared in 3 different regions. Who is Everett Sloan? Warren Pike, who had joined them at the far end of the table, looked up. Senior Vice President of Network Operations. Why is his approval code on maintenance downgrade requests? Pike's mouth tightened. Because anything affecting more than 3 aircraft rotations goes through his desk. Maya looked at him. A hydraulic warning is not a network inconvenience. No, Pike said quietly. But here, too many people learned to treat it like one. Before Maya could answer, the door opened and Thomas Greer stepped in with 2 attorneys behind him. He looked more polished than the day before, which told Maya he had slept and decided to become careful again. Inspector William, Greer said, we need to discuss scope. Maya did not put down the marker. Scope is what we are establishing. Our concern is mission creep. Flight 782 was serious. No one disputes that. But a company-wide fishing expedition could destabilize operations. Monroe gave him a flat look. A falsified safety record already destabilized operations. Greer ignored her and focused on Maya. We are responsible for thousands of employees and tens of thousands of passengers a day. If this becomes public in the wrong way, confidence collapses. Maya capped the marker. Confidence built on hidden risk deserves to collapse. One attorney leaned in. That is an extreme position. No, Maya said. It is the position passengers think you already hold. Greer's patience cracked. You are young, Inspector. You may not appreciate the complexity of running an airline. The room went still. Pike closed his eyes as if he had just watched a man step on a live wire. Maya looked at Greer for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was lower than before. Yesterday, Captain Harlan made the same mistake. He mistook my age for inexperience. It cost him his cockpit. Be careful what it costs you. Greer's face changed. Not apology. Calculation. The door opened again before he could respond. Daniel Price stood there, breathless, holding his phone. Inspector William, I'm sorry, they told me you were in here. Maya turned. What happened? Daniel looked at Greer, then at the attorneys, then back at Maya. Ron Kessler didn't just call me. He sent something last night. I didn't understand it until now. He crossed the room and handed her the phone. It was a screenshot of an internal maintenance dashboard. A list of aircraft tail numbers, status notes, delay exposure, override codes. One line was highlighted. 782 must move. Sloan wants all DCA rotations protected this week. Use green closeout if drift remains under alert threshold. Maya read it twice. Then she looked at Greer. Everett Sloan gave the instruction. Greer's face had gone blank. Pike whispered, "My God." The attorney reached for the phone. Maya pulled it back. This is now federal evidence. The attorney froze. Monroe was already calling her team. Secure Everett Sloan's office. Now. Lock his system access, preserve messages, dispatch notes, maintenance control logs, and personal device metadata if available. Greer stood rigid. Inspector, you cannot simply storm an executive office. Maya stepped toward him. Watch me. They moved fast. Through the hallway, past framed photographs of aircraft and smiling crews, across a sky bridge to the executive wing. Employees turned as Maya, Monroe, two federal agents, Daniel, Pike, and an unwilling CEO moved as one body toward the corner office with Everett Sloan's name on the glass. Sloan was inside. He was on the phone, feet on the floor, jacket off, sleeves rolled up like a man doing important work. When he saw the group through the glass, his expression did not show surprise. It showed annoyance. That told Maya enough to begin. Monroe opened the door. Everett Sloan? Sloan hung up slowly. This is a restricted executive area. Maya entered first. So was the cockpit. Sloan looked her over, recognized her, and gave a thin smile. Inspector William, quite a week you're having. It's getting longer. Greer stepped in behind her. Everett, cooperate. Sloan stood. With what? We're letting federal inspectors chase operational shadows because one captain lost his temper? Maya placed Daniel's phone screenshot on the desk. Explain. Use green closeout if drift remains under alert threshold. Sloan glanced at it. Not long. Just enough. I don't recall that message. Daniel spoke from the doorway. It came from Kessler after your call. Sloan looked at him. You're the mechanic. Technician, Daniel said. Right. That single word carried the whole culture Maya had been tracing. People reduced, dismissed, renamed smaller than they were. Maya stepped closer. Did you instruct maintenance control to keep DCA rotations protected this week? I instruct my teams to maintain operational integrity. Did that include closing active faults below alert threshold? Sloan laughed once. Inspector, commercial aviation runs on thresholds. If every cautious employee could ground an aircraft over a minor variance, nothing would fly. Daniel's face flushed. Miguel was not in the room, but Maya thought of him anyway. Every young pilot told to stop being cautious. Every mechanic told minor meant invisible. Every passenger sitting behind a locked cockpit door trusting someone had chosen correctly. Maya said, nothing should fly if the people responsible for it are lying. Sloan's smile disappeared. Monroe's radio crackled. We have live deletion activity from Sloan's company account. Greer turned sharply. What? Monroe spoke into the radio. Block it. A second voice answered. Blocking now. Multiple files queued for deletion. Maintenance escalation folders. Complaint closure correspondence. Sloane's face changed then. Only for a second, but everyone saw it. Maya looked at him. You were deleting records during this conversation? Sloane spread his hands. I have no idea what IT is seeing. Pike stared at him. Everett. Sloane snapped. Don't start with me, Warren. Pike stepped forward. How many? Sloane said nothing. How many aircraft? Pike demanded. Sloane's jaw worked. Maya did not wait. Agent Monroe. Freeze every aircraft released under green closeout connected to Sloane's approval chain in the last 30 days. Greer almost shouted. That could ground half our morning operation. Maya turned on him. Then half your morning operation should be looked at. The room erupted. Attorneys protested. Greer called it operationally catastrophic. Sloane accused Maya of grandstanding. Daniel stood near the door, gripping his phone with both hands. Monroe gave orders over the radio, with the calm of someone directing traffic around a burning bridge. Maya raised her voice once. Just once. Enough. The room stopped. She looked at Greer. Yesterday you apologized because one aircraft did not depart. Today you decide whether that apology meant anything. Greer's breathing was shallow. Maya pointed at Sloane. Your executive attempted to delete records in an active federal safety investigation. His approval chain is tied to maintenance downgrades. Your mechanic preserved a message that your own systems were about to lose. If you resist a review now, you are not protecting this company. You are joining the cover-up. The words left no soft place to stand. Greer looked at Sloane. Sloane looked back at him. Thomas, don't be stupid. She's forcing your hand. Greer stared at him for a long time. Then he said, Everett, surrender your devices. Sloane's face hardened. You'll regret that. No, Greer said, voice thin but clear. I think I already regret enough. Monroe signaled the agents. Sloane backed away from his desk, but there was nowhere useful to go. For the first time, he looked less like an executive and more like a man whose office had turned into a cockpit he no longer controlled. Daniel exhaled behind Maya. She turned to him. You did well. He shook his head. I was scared to bring it. You brought it scared. That counts. His eyes dropped. If I had brought things sooner. Maya cut him off gently. People who build unsafe systems depend on making honest people feel late. Don't help them. Daniel nodded. But the guilt did not leave all at once. It rarely did. By 5 p.m., Atlantic Crown voluntarily grounded 23 aircraft pending review. Voluntarily was the word the press release used. Maya knew better. Some choices only became voluntary after truth locked every exit. News helicopters circled the operations center before sunset. Passengers stared at cancellation boards. Reporters shouted questions outside the glass doors. Inside, employees moved with the stunned urgency of people discovering their workplace had a basement they had never been allowed to enter. Maya stood near the main operations floor as red and yellow alerts rearranged the airline's schedule across a wall of screens. Pike came up beside her. This may cost hundreds of millions, he said. Maya watched another aircraft status change from active to inspection hold. How much was a lie worth? Pike did not answer. Across the room, Daniel sat with federal agents, giving a full statement. His voice shook, but he kept speaking. At another table, 3 more mechanics waited to do the same. A dispatcher from Charlotte had flown in on her own dime because she had kept copies of pressure messages for 2 years. A former flight attendant joined by video, crying as she described how Linda Corbett had helped label her unstable after she reported racial comments from a captain. The silence was not just breaking now. It was emptying itself. Maya's watch pinged. She looked down. Grandma Ruth. Still standing? Maya looked at the grounded aircraft on the screen. 23 of them. Then at Daniel. Then at Monroe. Then at the employees lining up with evidence they had carried too long. She typed back, Yes, ma'am. But today, a lot of people stood up with me. Ruth replied almost immediately. Then make room. More are coming. Maya read the words twice. Then she turned back toward the conference room, where another closed file was being opened. Another name spoken aloud. Another person finally believed. Outside, aircraft that should not have flown stayed on the ground. Inside, the truth had become impossible to taxi back. By the third day, the airport stopped feeling like a terminal and started feeling like a witness stand. Everywhere Maya turned, someone had something to say. A gate agent from Phoenix had flown in with printed copies of emails she had been told to delete. A dispatcher from Charlotte sat outside the interview room with a folder hugged to her chest, whispering to herself before going in. 2 mechanics from Seattle arrived in work boots, still smelling faintly of fuel and rain, carrying a thumb drive wrapped in a paper towel because one of them said, "I didn't know what else to put it in." Agent Monroe set up 3 interview rooms. By noon, she needed 6. Atlantic Crown's operations center was still running, but it no longer moved with its usual confidence. Every phone call sounded careful. Every supervisor looked over his shoulder before giving orders. On the wall of screens, 23 aircraft remained on inspection hold. Each red mark on the board was a delay, a financial loss, a passenger complaint, a missed connection. But to Maya, each red mark was also a plane that had not been allowed to carry a hidden question into the sky. At 1:18 p.m., Warren Pike walked into the temporary investigation room, holding a stack of printed files. Maya looked up. "What is that?" Pike placed the files on the table. The reports Everett Sloan had moved to archive. Monroe turned from her laptop. "Moved when?" "Last night." Before his access was frozen. Maya opened the first folder. The top page was a passenger complaint from a black mother traveling with 2 children from Atlanta to Denver. She had been asked to prove twice that she belonged in premium economy, then reported as aggressive when she asked why no one else in the row had been questioned. Maya opened the second. A female first officer had reported that Captain Harlan called her "little girl" 3 times during a flight and told her not to touch the radio unless spoken to. The third file was Miguel Torres. Maya stopped. The report said he had shown poor cockpit temperament and resistance to command authority after questioning a fuel imbalance. The final note was signed by a chief pilot who had never flown with him. Maya looked at Pike. "Who wrote the final note?" Pike's mouth tightened. Harlan submitted the initial complaint. The chief pilot approved it. Sloan's office pushed it through. "Why?" "Because Miguel filed a safety concern after the flight." Maya closed the folder slowly. "So they punished the report by attacking the reporter." Pike did not defend it. "Yes." Monroe reached for the file. "We'll need Torres back in. He's already here," Pike said. Maya looked toward the door. Miguel stood outside the glass, hands clasped in front of him, watching people move through the hallway like a man still not sure he was allowed to enter. Maya opened the door herself. "Miguel." He straightened. "Inspector, come in." He stepped inside and saw the folder on the table. His face changed immediately. "That's my file." "Yes," Maya said. "We found the escalation trail." He let out a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. "I used to think maybe I remembered it worse than it was." "You didn't." The answer hit him harder than she expected. Miguel sat down. His shoulders dropped. For almost a minute he did not speak. Then he said, "Do you know what that note cost me?" Maya sat across from him. "Tell me." "I lost a training slot, then a route assignment. Then people stopped picking me up for extra flights because they heard I was difficult." He rubbed his hands together. "My father kept saying, 'Mijo, keep your head down. Don't let them take your dream.' So I kept my head down. But they were taking it anyway." Maya did not interrupt. Miguel looked at the folder. "Yesterday, when Harlan told me to sit down, I almost did. My legs wanted to. My mouth didn't." Monroe's voice softened. "Your mouth won." Miguel blinked fast and looked away. Maya pushed the folder toward him. "This file will be corrected. The safety concern you raised will be restored. The retaliation will be documented." He stared at her. "That simple?" "No," Maya said. "But that clear?" Before Miguel could answer, Daniel Price knocked once and came in without waiting. His face was pale again. Monroe stood. "What happened?" Daniel held up his phone. "Kessler's gone." Maya's eyes sharpened. "Gone where?" "Nobody knows. His badge was used at the maintenance control office at 12:06, then again at the South employee exit at 12:22. He cleared out his locker. Pike swore under his breath. Monroe grabbed her radio. Need airport security to locate Ron Kessler. Maintenance control supervisor. Badge access last seen South employee exit. Preserve CCTV. Maya turned to Daniel. Did he contact you again? Daniel nodded. One message. Show me. Daniel handed over the phone. The message read, You should have kept quiet. You don't know how many people this reaches. Maya felt the temperature in the room change. She looked at Pike. How many people does this reach? Pike's face had gone gray. I don't know. That is no longer acceptable. I know. Monroe's radio crackled. Agent Monroe, security has Kessler on camera entering long-term employee parking. No current visual. Get local law enforcement notified, Monroe said. And freeze his access immediately. Already done. Daniel sank into a chair. He knows where I live. Maya turned to Monroe. Protective notification. Now. Daniel's address, family, emergency contact. Same for Miguel and any employee who submitted evidence tied to Sloan or Kessler. Daniel looked up quickly. My sister watches my son after school. Maya's voice stayed calm. Give Agent Monroe the address. We'll make sure local police are aware. Daniel's hands shook as he typed the information. Miguel moved closer to him. I'll stay with you until they confirm. Daniel looked at him, surprised. You don't have to. I know. That was the whole answer. At 2:40 p.m., security found Ron Kessler in his pickup at a gas station 6 miles from the airport. He had 2 company laptops, a personal hard drive, and a paper envelope containing printed maintenance override summaries. He told police he was taking work home. The laptops were seized. The hard drive was sealed. The envelope went directly to Monroe. At 3:15, Monroe opened it in front of Maya. Inside was a list. Not a long explanation. Not a confession. Just aircraft tail numbers, dates, fault codes, and initials. Pike recognized the initials first. Sloan, he said. Kessler. Renner. And that one. He tapped a set of letters near the bottom. T. G. Maya looked at him. Thomas Greer? Pike did not answer. He did not need to. The room became very quiet. Monroe picked up the phone. We need the CEO's devices secured. Pike sat down like someone had cut a string. Maya stood still, eyes on the initials. The shape of the investigation had changed again. Harlan was no longer the doorway. Sloan was no longer the ceiling. There was another floor above them. 10 minutes later, Thomas Greer arrived at the investigation room, furious. This is outrageous, he said, before the door fully closed. You are not seizing my personal devices based on initials in some mechanic's envelope. Monroe placed the paper on the table. Then explain them. Greer barely glanced at it. I don't know what that is. Maya stepped forward. You asked yesterday to discuss scope. Here it is. Greer pointed at her. You are trying to destroy this airline. No, Maya said. I am trying to find out whether the people running it cared if it destroyed someone else. His face flushed. Careful, Inspector. Maya almost smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That word keeps coming from men who should have used it sooner. Greer turned to Pike. Warren, tell them this is absurd. Pike looked at him for a long time. Did you know? Greer stared. What? Did you know Sloan was pressuring maintenance control? Greer's mouth opened, then closed. Pike's voice broke slightly. Thomas, did you know? Greer looked around the room. At Monroe. At Daniel. At Miguel. At Maya. For the first time, he seemed to understand that titles no longer arranged the room in his favor. He sat down. I knew there was pressure on completion rates, he said. Maya said nothing. Greer rubbed his face. I knew Sloan was aggressive. Monroe asked, Did you know maintenance warnings were being downgraded? Greer looked at the table. Not specifically, Maya said. That is not an answer. His voice thinned. I didn't ask. There it was again. The sentence that lived under so many disasters. I didn't ask. Daniel stared at him with open disbelief. You didn't ask because people like me were easier to blame. Greer looked at him but had no defense. Miguel said, You didn't ask because people like me were easier to label. Greer swallowed. Maya leaned both hands on the table. And passengers were easier to board. No one moved. At 5 p.m., Thomas Greer was placed on administrative leave by emergency board vote. Evelyn Shaw, the board member who had pushed for passenger compensation, was named interim CEO. Her first order was simple: all records open to federal review, all retaliation claims frozen, all affected employees contacted by outside counsel. At 6:30, she walked into the investigation room without attorneys. Maya looked up. Evelyn said, "Tell me what you need." "No slogans," Maya said. "No committees that never meet. No training video pretending bias is solved because people clicked through slides." Evelyn nodded. "Agreed. Independent safety ombudsman with authority outside operations. Protected reporting for maintenance and crew. Automatic review of every downgraded safety report. External audit of discrimination complaints. Reasoned. Went 4014. Indestat of face steening. 17 IMSS. Public quarterly data." Evelyn wrote it down by hand. "What else?" Maya looked through the glass at Daniel, Miguel, and the line of employees still waiting to speak. "Apologize to them by name when they allow it," she said. "Restore what was taken. Promotions. Lost pay. Files. Reputations. Don't call them brave so you can avoid admitting they were abandoned." Evelyn's pen stopped. Then she wrote that down too. Night fell over Dallas. The grounded aircraft sat under floodlights, quiet and accused. News crews still waited outside. Inside, people kept coming. A cleaner brought a photo of a racist note left in a galley. A dispatcher brought call logs. A retired pilot called from Arizona and said he had carried guilt for 6 years. Maya listened until her voice grew rough. Near midnight, she finally stepped outside onto a service balcony overlooking the ramp. The air smelled of jet fuel and rain on concrete. For the first time all day, no one asked her a question. Her watch pinged. "Grandma Ruth, baby, are you tired?" Maya stared at the lights on the runway. She typed back, "Yes, ma'am." The reply came moments later. "Good. That means you carried something real. Now don't carry it alone." Maya looked back through the glass. Daniel was laughing softly at something Miguel had said. Monroe was still working. Evelyn Shaw was sitting with Alicia, the gate agent, listening instead of talking. Margaret Wells had returned with sandwiches for whoever had forgotten to eat, which was everyone. Maya took one breath, then another. For 3 days, the story had been about a captain who yelled, a woman who refused to move, and a badge that changed the room. Now it was about something larger. A company had tried to keep aircraft moving by keeping people silent, and one by one, the silent had begun to speak. By sunrise, the story was no longer about Flight 782. It was on every major network now. Morning anchors sat beneath bright studio lights and said Maya Williams' name, like they were still trying to understand how a 30-year captain had mistaken a federal inspector for someone he could throw away. Aviation experts circled diagrams of hydraulic systems. Legal analysts discussed falsified maintenance records. Former pilots debated cockpit authority. Civil rights advocates said what Maya had known from the first 5 seconds. Bias does not become less dangerous just because it wears a uniform. Inside Atlantic Crown's operations center, nobody had time to watch the coverage. The investigation had become too large. Agent Monroe moved through the conference room with a stack of subpoenas in one hand and a phone pressed to her ear. Evelyn Shaw had turned the executive boardroom into a command center. The long, polished table now held witness statements, laptops, coffee cups, legal notices, and a box of tissues someone had brought after the third employee broke down while telling the truth. Maya had not slept more than 2 hours. She stood at the center screen, reviewing a map of complaint clusters. Red dots marked cities. Blue dots marked maintenance overrides. Yellow dots marked discrimination complaints. At first glance, it looked like separate problems. Then Monroe layered the data by supervisor approval chain. The dots connected: Denver to Dallas, Charlotte to Phoenix, Seattle to Atlanta. Same managers, same language, same closures, same quiet punishment after someone spoke. Evelyn Shaw stood beside Maya, arms folded. How did we not see this? Maya did not look away from the map. Some people saw it. They just weren't the people you were listening to. Evelyn took that without defending herself. That was the first reason Maya thought she might be useful. A young investigator entered the room. "Inspector William, we have the final restoration on Kessler's hard drive." Monroe lowered her phone. "What did you find?" The investigator placed a laptop on the table and turned it toward them. A folder labeled Threshold Management. "Deleted 2 days ago. Recovered this morning." Maya leaned closer. Inside were spreadsheets, hundreds of lines, aircraft tail numbers, fault codes, delay exposure, revenue impact, responsible manager, recommended action. Some lines were marked monitor, some defer, some downgrade, and some carried the same phrase that made the room go cold. Green. Closeout. Maya opened one file. There was Flight 782, hydraulic pressure drift, DCA rotation, high disruption exposure. Recommend green closeout if under alert threshold. Approved by E. Sloan. Copied to T. Greer. Evelyn whispered. "He was copied," Monroe said. "More than copied. Look at the reply." The next line appeared beneath the approval chain. "Keep the board clean this week. We cannot afford another operational headline." Initials, T. G. No one spoke. Evelyn sat down slowly. That was Thomas. Maya kept scrolling. Flight 782 was not the first. It was not even the 10th. A flight from Denver with a recurring avionics issue. A Charlotte aircraft with brake temperature irregularities. A Seattle departure where a mechanic had refused to sign off and was replaced. A Phoenix turn where a crew complaint about fatigue had been downgraded to scheduling preference. Dates, names, patterns, proof. Daniel Price entered with Miguel Torres, just as the final spreadsheet loaded. They both stopped when they saw the screen. Daniel's voice went quiet. "How many?" The investigator answered. "At least 47 aircraft events under review. That's only from the recovered folder." Miguel gripped the back of a chair. 47? Maya looked at him. Under review does not mean all were unsafe, but it means someone built a system to ask the wrong question. Daniel asked, "What question?" "Not, is this aircraft safe?" Maya said. They asked, "Can we justify sending it anyway?" Daniel lowered his eyes. Miguel shook his head. "That's how they did it in the cockpit too. Harlan never asked if I was right about the fuel. He only asked if I had enough power to stop him." Evelyn looked at him. "Mr. Torres, I owe you an apology." Miguel seemed unprepared for that. "You personally?" "I sat on a board that accepted clean reports because they were clean," she said. "So yes, personally." Miguel did not forgive her. Not then. Not with a single sentence. But his face changed because at least the apology had not come wrapped in an excuse. Monroe closed the laptop. "We need to escalate this beyond enforcement review. This is systemic. Record manipulation." Maya nodded. "Notify the Department of Transportation Inspector General Liaison. Request criminal referral evaluation for falsification and obstruction. And freeze compensation discussions until whistleblower protections are confirmed in writing." Evelyn looked up. "I'll sign whatever is needed." Maya turned to her. "You will also announce the aircraft review publicly." Evelyn's board counsel, standing near the wall, immediately stepped forward. "That could cause panic." "No," Maya said. "It will cause anger. Panic is what happens when people discover later that you knew sooner." Evelyn nodded. "Draft it." The counsel looked at her. "Evelyn, draft it," she said again. At 11:30 a.m., Atlantic Crown grounded 31 additional aircraft pending review. The stock fell. Reporters shouted. Passengers cursed at counters from Boston to San Diego. Cable news called it one of the largest voluntary operational pauses in recent domestic aviation history. Voluntary. Again, that word. Maya watched the announcement from the back of the press room and thought of all the words corporations use to make forced honesty sound generous. Then Daniel's phone rang. He stepped into the hall, answered, and went pale. Maya followed. "What is it?" Daniel held the phone away from his ear as if it had burned him. "My sister. Someone from an unknown number called her house and asked if my son still gets out of school at 3. Maya's body went still. Monroe was already moving toward them. "Give me the phone." Daniel's voice broke. "My boy is 7. Maya looked at Monroe. "Protective detail now. School, sister's house, Daniel's residence, local law enforcement, and federal coordination. Miguel, too." Miguel had come into the hallway behind them. "Me? If they are threatening him, they may threaten anyone connected." Daniel pressed both hands to his head. "I should never have brought that tablet." Maya stepped in front of him. "Look at me." He could barely do it. "Daniel, they called your family because the tablet mattered. Not because you were wrong, because you were right." He shook his head. "That doesn't help my son." "No," Maya said. "But we will." For the first time since the cockpit, her voice carried something sharper than control. By 12:05 p.m., Daniel's son was picked up from school by his aunt and a police officer. By 12:22, the unknown number was traced to a prepaid phone purchased near the airport. By 1:10, surveillance showed Ron Kessler buying it the night before he tried to leave with the hard drive. Kessler had not acted alone. By 2, he was in custody. This time, he talked. Not out of courage, out of fear. He gave them Sloan's instructions, Renner's coordination, Greer's knowledge, and the names of 2 other managers who had kept the green closeout system alive. He described how they used threshold language to pressure technicians. Nothing illegal on its face. Nothing that looked like a direct command to falsify. Just enough pressure, repeated often enough, until people understood what outcome protected their jobs. "Did Harlan know?" Monroe asked during the recorded interview. Kessler rubbed his face. Harlan didn't need details. He just wanted clean aircraft and no delays. If someone raised an issue, he called them weak, nervous, political, whatever word fit. Management loved him because he moved metal. Maya stood behind the glass, listening. Moved metal. Not flew passengers. Not carried families. Not protected lives. Moved metal. Kessler continued. Flight 782 was supposed to be routine. Then that woman showed up. Monroe asked, "Inspector William?" Kessler gave a bitter laugh. Nobody knew she was an inspector. That's the only reason any of this came out. Maya's eyes stayed on the glass. That sentence would become the center of her report. At 5:45 p.m., Captain Blake Harlan requested to speak with her. Monroe advised against it. Maya agreed to 5 minutes with recording. Harlan sat in the same windowless room as before, but the anger had drained out of him. What remained was not humility. Not yet. It was collapse. "I saw the news," he said. Maya sat across from him. "Most people have. They're making me the face of it. You helped." He flinched. "I didn't know about all of it." "No," Maya said. "But you benefited from enough of it." Harlan stared at his hands. "I thought I was protecting standards." Maya's answer came quickly. "You were protecting hierarchy." He looked up. "You confused obedience with competence," she said. "You confused fear with respect. You confused a quiet cockpit with a safe one." For a moment, his eyes shone, but whether from shame or self-pity, Maya could not tell. "I grabbed your wrist," he said. "Yes. I keep seeing that." "Good." He looked hurt by the word. Maya did not soften it. Some memories were supposed to bruise. Harlan swallowed. "If I had known who you were, that is not the sentence that saves you," Maya said. He went silent. "The question is not what you would have done if you knew I had power. The question is what you did when you thought I had none." He closed his eyes. This time, he had no answer. When Maya left the room, the sun was setting again over Dallas. The sky beyond the operations center had turned copper, and the grounded aircraft sat in rows like questions, waiting for honest answers. Her watch pinged. "Grandma Ruth, did they hear you today?" Maya looked through the glass at Daniel hugging his sister and son in the hallway, at Miguel giving another statement with his shoulders finely squared, at Evelyn Shaw signing the public grounding notice, at Monroe pinning a new evidence sheet to the wall. She typed back, "Yes, ma'am." But today they heard everyone else too. The reply came a moment later. "That is how you know the work has started." Maya read it twice. Then she walked back into the room where the recovered files waited. Flight 782 had begun with 5 seconds. 5 seconds to leave. 5 seconds to bow. 5 seconds to disappear. But Maya had stayed, and because she stayed, the question was no longer whether one woman belonged in the cockpit. The question was, how many people had been pushed out of rooms where their truth might have saved lives? By the end of the week, Atlantic Crown Airways had 2 versions of itself. One lived on television. That version had emergency statements, falling stock numbers, grounded aircraft, congressional questions, angry passengers, and executives walking quickly past cameras with their heads down. That version was loud. It had headlines. It had experts. It had people who had never touched a maintenance log explaining what safety culture should have been. The other version lived in a training room on the 2nd floor of the Dallas Operations Center. That version was quieter. It was Daniel Price sitting across from 2 investigators, explaining how a technician learns to hear pressure in a supervisor's silence. It was Miguel Torres reading the corrected note in his personnel file and then looking away because the words restored his name, but not the year he had lost. It was Serena, the young flight attendant, admitting she had seen Linda Corbett humiliate passengers before and had said nothing because everyone knew Linda was protected by senior captains. It was Alicia from the gate desk handing over a folder of passenger complaints she had quietly copied because, in her words, "I knew someday someone would ask." Maya spent more time with the quiet version. That was where the truth was. On Friday morning, she found Miguel alone near the simulator bay. Through the glass, 2 trainees practiced an engine failure scenario. Voices calm, hands moving in rhythm. Miguel watched them like a man watching a life he had almost lost. Maya stopped beside him. "You fly tomorrow?" He looked surprised, she knew. "Replacement assignment to Denver. First time since this started. How do you feel?" He gave a short breath. "Like I want to throw up. That's honest. I keep thinking about Harlan telling me to sit down. It's stupid. He's not even flying. It's not stupid," Maya said. "Some voices keep giving orders after the person leaves the room." Miguel nodded slowly. "How do you get them out?" "You don't get them out all at once. You answer them with action until they become background noise." He looked through the glass at the trainees. "And if I freeze? Then you do the next right checklist item." That almost made him smile. A woman's voice came from behind them. "That sounds like something my grandmother would say." Maya turned. Margaret Wells stood there with a visitor badge clipped crookedly to her sweater. She carried a paper bag in one hand and her phone in the other. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Miss Wells, how did you get past security?" Margaret lifted the bag. "Biscuits. Never underestimate a woman with biscuits." Miguel laughed for the first time Maya had heard. Margaret handed the bag to him. "You look like you need one." "I'm okay, ma'am. Men always say that right before they faint." He took one. Maya shook her head. "You didn't have to come back." "Yes, I did," Margaret said. "I gave my statement. Then I went home. Then I watched that clip on the news and got mad all over again. So I came to see whether anybody here had eaten." Maya looked at the bag. "My grandmother would approve of you. I'd like her. She'd like you more if you brought peach cobbler." Margaret pointed at her. "Don't test me." For a moment, the 3 of them stood there in something almost peaceful. Then Agent Monroe appeared at the end of the hall. Her face said the piece was over. "Maya," she called. "We have the preliminary enforcement recommendations." Maya followed her into the command room. Evelyn Shaw was already there. Warren Pike sat beside her, no longer pretending exhaustion could be hidden. The table held a draft report thick enough to make the air feel heavier. Monroe opened it. "Captain Blake Harlan. Emergency revocation review recommended. Findings include refusal to verify crew assignment, interference with safety communication, physical contact with assigned first officer, attempted removal of federal inspector, and failure to respond appropriately to a known mechanical concern." Maya listened without reaction. "Linda Corbett," Monroe continued. "Termination recommended by company. Federal referral limited unless additional evidence shows interference with safety duties. However, passenger discrimination complaints tied to her will be referred to Civil Rights Review." Evelyn nodded. "She was terminated this morning. Paul Renner. Terminated. Referred for enforcement and possible obstruction related to maintenance record manipulation." Pike closed his eyes. "Ron Kessler. Terminated. referred for falsification, obstruction, and witness intimidation. Monroe turned the page. Everett Sloan. Terminated. Federal referral for systemic manipulation of maintenance thresholds, obstruction, and deletion of evidence. Another page. Thomas Greer. The room went still. Removed by board vote. Federal referral for knowledge of threshold management practices and failure to act after being copied on operational safety downgrade communications. Evelyn looked down. The vote passed at 7:10 this morning, unanimous after he refused to resign. Maya turned toward her. And you? Evelyn met her eyes. Interim CEO. 90 days. Maybe less if the board wants someone safer. Safer for whom? Evelyn accepted the hit. Exactly. Monroe slid another section forward. Now the corrective actions. Independent safety ombudsman. Protected reporting channel outside operations. Automatic external review of safety downgrades. Public quarterly complaint and safety concern data. Mandatory cockpit authority training. Bias and retaliation audit. Restoration review for affected employees. Maya picked up the draft. Restoration review sounds weak. Pike looked up. What would you call it? Repair. He blinked. Maya tapped the page. Restoration can sound like paperwork. Repair admits something was broken. Evelyn wrote it down. Repair board. Employee-led, Maya said. Not executive-led. Include maintenance, flight crew, cabin crew, gate operations, dispatch, and one passenger advocate. Done. Pike gave a faint smile. You say that like it's easy. Evelyn looked at him. It won't be. That is not an argument against doing it. Maya saw then that Evelyn had changed. Not completely. No one changes completely in a week, but something in her had shifted from managing exposure to absorbing responsibility. That mattered. At noon, Maya requested one more meeting before leaving Dallas. Not with the board, not with reporters, with the passengers and employees directly tied to Flight 782 who were willing to come. They gathered in a small auditorium used for annual compliance training. There were no banners, no press, no microphones, except one handheld on a stand nobody wanted to use. Daniel sat with his sister and his 7-year-old son, Caleb, who swung his feet under the chair and stared at Maya's badge with open fascination. Miguel sat 2 rows behind them. Margaret sat in front, arms crossed like she planned to keep order herself. Serena stood near the side wall. Alicia came in late, still wearing her gate badge. A few passengers from the flight entered quietly, including the man who had complained about his congressional meeting. Maya stood at the front. I asked for this room because official reports are necessary, but they are not enough, she said. Reports tell what happened. Rooms like this tell who it happened to. No one moved. She looked at Daniel. A technician reported a fault and was ignored. Daniel looked down, but his son watched him with pride. She looked at Miguel. A first officer raised a safety concern and was punished. Miguel's jaw tightened, but he did not look away. She looked at Margaret. A passenger saw abuse of authority and refused to let it happen quietly. Margaret gave a small nod. Maya looked at Serena and Alicia. Employees without titles higher than their courage did their jobs when the people above them failed theirs. Serena wiped her eyes quickly. Then Maya looked across the whole room. What happened on Flight 782 was not saved by one badge. It was saved by a chain of people who each did one hard thing. Daniel told the truth. Miguel stood up. Margaret recorded. Serena helped passengers without lying to them. Alicia told them the real reason for the delay. Agent Monroe preserved the evidence. And yes, I stayed in the seat. But none of that works alone. The man from row 2 stood awkwardly. Inspector William? Maya nodded. I was angry when the flight was stopped. I thought you were overreacting. He looked embarrassed, but he continued. I've been thinking about that. I think I was more worried about being inconvenienced than being wrong. Margaret muttered. That's common. A few people laughed softly. The man smiled a little, then looked back at Maya. I'm sorry, Maya answered. Thank you. Caleb, Daniel's son, raised his hand. Daniel whispered, Buddy, not now, Maya said. It's all right. What's your question? Caleb stood on the floor between his father's knees. Are you the boss of airplanes? The room laughed. Even Monroe. Maya smiled. No, I'm not the boss of airplanes. Then why did the mean pilot have to listen to you? The laughter faded. Maya walked closer to him, careful not to turn the answer into something too big for a child. Because grown-ups who are responsible for keeping people safe have rules too, she said. And when someone breaks those rules, someone has to stop them, even if they have a loud voice. Caleb thought about that. My dad stopped them too? Maya looked at Daniel. Daniel's eyes filled immediately. Yes, Maya said. Your dad helped stop them. Caleb turned around and hugged Daniel's waist. Daniel covered his son's head with one hand and looked at the floor because some men need privacy, even when they are crying in public. Margaret cleared her throat loudly. Well, that was about enough to finish all of us. This time, the room laughed with relief. After the meeting, people left slowly. They shook hands, exchanged numbers, stood in small groups that had not existed before Flight 782. Daniel introduced Caleb to Miguel. Margaret promised to send Serena the full recording for her own statement. Alicia asked Maya whether she should apply for the internal repair board, and Maya said, not should, must. Near the doorway, Evelyn Shaw waited. I want to make the repair board public, Evelyn said. Not the private details, the structure, the deadlines, the data. Maya studied her. You understand. Public means measurable. Yes, and measurable means uncomfortable. I'm beginning to think comfort was the problem. Maya nodded. Then start there. As she walked out of the auditorium, her watch pinged. Grandma Ruth, did you eat? Maya laughed and typed back. Margaret brought biscuits. The reply came fast. Good woman. Trust her. Maya looked back through the auditorium doors. Margaret was giving Daniel's son a peppermint from her purse and lecturing him about looking both ways in airports. Maya typed back. I do. That evening, before leaving Dallas, Maya returned once more to gate D22. The aircraft from Flight 782 was gone, towed to a maintenance hangar under federal hold. Another plane sat at the gate now, clean and ordinary, boarding for a flight to Chicago. Passengers walked down the jet bridge with coffee cups, backpacks, neck pillows, and the fragile trust people carry when they step into a machine they cannot control. Maya stood by the window and watched. Miguel's words came back to her. How do you get the voices out? You answer them with action. A little girl in a pink jacket pressed her hand to the glass as the aircraft lights blinked outside. Her mother tugged gently. Come on, baby. We're boarding. The girl pointed toward the cockpit windows. Can girls fly planes? Maya turned. The mother smiled apologetically. She asks everybody that. Maya crouched just enough to meet the child's eyes. Yes, she said. Girls can fly planes. Girls can inspect them too. The little girl grinned. Even little girls? Especially little girls who ask questions. The mother's expression softened. Thank you. Maya watched them walk toward the jet bridge. Behind the gate desk, Alicia was explaining a maintenance delay to a passenger. Not hiding it. Not dressing it up. Just telling the truth. It was a small thing. But small things had started this too. A pressure drift. A falsified sign-off. A woman refusing to move. A witness refusing to stop recording. A technician refusing to keep swallowing fear. Maya picked up her flight bag. Tomorrow, she would fly to Washington. There would be hearings, reports, lawyers, pushback, headlines. People would try to make the story smaller because small stories are easier to survive. But Flight 782 had taught the country something larger. The most dangerous lie in any cockpit is not always spoken aloud. Sometimes it is the silence everyone agrees to keep. And the first act of safety, the first act of justice, is breaking it. Maya flew to Washington the next morning as a passenger. Not in uniform. Not with a badge displayed. Not with cameras waiting at the gate. She wore a dark blazer, carried one black flight bag, and took a window seat halfway down the aircraft. For the first time in a week, no one asked her for a statement, a decision, a signature, or a quote. The cabin around her settled into the ordinary sounds of travel. Seatbelts clicked. A baby fussed. A man across the aisle struggled with the overhead bin until a stranger helped him. The flight attendant gave the safety demonstration with practiced calm. Maya watched her closely, not suspiciously, not coldly, just aware. That was the cost of knowing too much. Ordinary things never looked completely ordinary again. When the aircraft began to taxi, Maya felt the familiar pull in her chest. The engines rose. The runway opened ahead. The wheels gathered speed. For one breath, she was back in the right seat of Flight 782, watching hydraulic pressure fall while Blake Harlan counted down like her dignity had an expiration date. 5, 4, 3. The plane lifted. Maya closed her eyes until the climb steadied. Her watch pinged. "Grandma Ruth, you in the air?" Maya smiled and typed back. "Yes, ma'am." The reply came quickly. "Good. Don't let them make you afraid of the sky." Maya looked out the window. The clouds over Texas were bright and clean, hiding everything below them. High enough, every city looked peaceful. High enough, no one could see the gate, where a technician almost lost his job for telling the truth, or the cockpit where a captain mistook volume for command, or the conference room where executives learned that silence had a paper trail. But Maya could see it. She would carry it to Washington. The hearing began the following morning in a federal building not far from Capitol Hill. The room was smaller than the cameras made it look, but the stakes filled every corner. Reporters lined the back wall. Staffers moved in and out with folders. Executives from Atlantic Crown sat at one table. Evelyn Shaw was there, not hiding, hands folded over a legal pad covered in handwritten notes. Warren Pike sat behind her. Thomas Greer was not present. His attorneys had advised him against appearing voluntarily. Captain Harlan was there. He sat 2 rows behind the company table, wearing a dark suit that did not fit him the way his uniform had. Without the stripes, he looked less certain where to put his hands. Maya entered with Agent Monroe. The room turned. Not everyone stared kindly. Some looked curious. Some looked grateful. Some looked annoyed that a single woman had forced an entire industry to use words it preferred to avoid. Maya took her seat. A senator with silver hair and reading glasses opened the session. "Inspector William, before we begin, let me say that many people are calling you a hero." Maya leaned toward the microphone. "Senator, with respect, that word can make the problem too small." A ripple moved through the room. The senator paused. "How so?" "A hero story lets people believe the danger ended when one person stood up," Maya said. "Flight 782 did not happen because one captain shouted. It happened because many people learned that shouting was safer to obey than truth was to report." The room quieted. The questioning began. They asked about the hydraulic system. Maya explained the pressure drift in plain language. They asked about the falsified record. Agent Monroe walked them through the recovered files. They asked about Atlantic Crown's response. Evelyn Shaw admitted the company had failed to listen to lower-level employees and had rewarded clean metrics over honest reporting. Then one senator leaned back and asked the question Maya knew was coming. "Inspector William, some critics argue that your presence in that cockpit under an undercover assignment created the confrontation. How do you respond?" Maya looked at him. "I sat in the assigned seat. I opened the checklist. I identified a safety concern. The confrontation began when Captain Harlan decided I did not belong there before he verified who I was or what I had found." The senator tried again. "But had you identified yourself immediately as a federal inspector, none of this may have escalated." "That is correct," Maya said. "And the underlying problem would have remained hidden." A few heads turned. She continued. "If people behave properly only when they know power is watching, that is not safety culture. That is performance. My assignment revealed what happened when they believed I was merely a young black first officer with no protection." At the back of the room, Margaret Wells sat with Daniel Price and Miguel Torres. Margaret's chin lifted slightly, as if she had been waiting for that sentence all morning. The senator stopped pressing. Daniel testified next. He was nervous. Everyone could see it. His suit jacket was a little too large. His hands shook when he adjusted the microphone. But when he spoke, he did not look down. "My name is Daniel Price. I am an aircraft maintenance technician. I reported the pressure drift on Flight 782. I did not close the fault. My ID was used after I clocked out. A senator asked, "Why didn't you report the falsification immediately?" Daniel swallowed. "Because people like me learn the difference between a safety policy and a paycheck." The room went still. He glanced at Maya, then kept going. "I have a son. Rent, car payment, health insurance. When a supervisor says, 'Do you want to be the reason this aircraft doesn't move?' that's not just a question. That's a warning," Miguel testified after him. His voice was steadier, but his pain sat closer to the surface. "I thought my career was over because I asked a question in a cockpit," he said. "Not because I made a mistake, because I questioned a captain who was protected. The worst part is, after a while, you start wondering if they're right about you. If you really are difficult. If your instincts are trouble. That is how retaliation works. It makes you help them silence you." Maya saw Harlan lower his eyes. Then Margaret Wells took the microphone. She had refused prepared remarks. "I'm not a pilot," she said. "I'm not a mechanic. I'm just an old nurse who knows what it sounds like when someone in charge stops caring who gets hurt. I recorded because I have seen too many people wait for someone else to be brave first." One senator asked, "Miss Wells, what made you trust Inspector William in that moment?" Margaret gave him a look over her glasses. She was the only person in that cockpit talking about the airplane. A small sound moved through the room, almost laughter, almost agreement. Then Captain Harlan was called. He stood slowly. For a moment, Maya saw him as he had been in the cockpit. Loud, rigid, certain. Then he reached the microphone, and the illusion fell away. "My name is Blake Harlan," he said. "I was the captain assigned to Flight 782. The room waited. His attorney sat forward, tense. Harlan looked at Maya once, then at the committee. "I failed to verify Inspector Williams' crew assignment. I failed to review the system indication when she identified it. I interrupted her safety call. I called airport police. I put my hand on her wrist." He stopped. The silence stretched. Then he said, "I told myself I was protecting cockpit authority. I was protecting my own." No one moved. He continued, voice rougher now. "When I said she didn't look like the first officer I expected, I heard myself. I have been hearing it ever since." Maya did not soften. She did not celebrate. She simply listened. Harlan turned slightly toward her. "Inspector William, I owe you an apology." Maya leaned toward her microphone. "Captain Harlan, the apology belongs first to every person you had power over when no camera was recording." His face tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The words landed differently from him now. Not enough to repair, but enough to enter the record. By late afternoon, the hearing had produced what headlines would call a turning point. Federal regulators announced a broader review of maintenance pressure practices across multiple carriers. Atlantic Crown committed to public quarterly safety and complaint data. The repair board was approved. Daniel and Miguel were placed under formal whistleblower protection. Margaret Wells became, against her will, a cable news favorite for exactly 6 hours before she told a producer, "I am not available," to become a slogan. Maya left the building through a side exit. Outside, Washington was damp with evening rain. The city smelled like wet stone and traffic. She stood beneath the awning, waiting for her car, when a young woman approached with a notebook clutched to her chest. "Inspector William?" Maya turned. The young woman was maybe 19. Black, nervous, determined in the way nervous people are when they refuse to turn around. "My name is Naomi Brooks. I'm in an aviation maintenance program in Maryland. I watched the hearing." She swallowed. "I just wanted to say I almost quit last month." Maya's expression softened. "Why?" "My instructor keeps calling me sweetheart. Says I'm too delicate for hangar work." I thought maybe he was right. Maya stepped closer. "Is he?" Naomi shook her head. "No." "Then don't carry his doubt for him." Naomi's eyes filled, but she smiled. "Yes, ma'am." Maya reached into her bag, pulled out a card, and handed it to her. "Send me an email. Not because you need saving, because this industry needs people who know when something is wrong and refuse to pretend it isn't." Naomi held the card like it weighed more than paper. "Thank you." Maya watched her walk away into the rain. Her watch pinged. Grandma Ruth. Did they listen? Maya looked back at the federal building, at the lit windows, at the reporters still waiting for someone else to say something clean enough for television. She typed back. Some did. Some only heard. Ruth replied. That's all right. Seeds and thunder don't work the same day. Maya smiled. Her car arrived, but she did not get in immediately. She looked up at the low clouds over Washington and thought of Flight 782 still sitting in a hangar, silent now but no longer hiding anything. A week earlier, Blake Harlan had given her 5 seconds to leave his cockpit. Now his words were in a federal record. Daniel's truth was in a federal record. Miguel's lost year was in a federal record. Margaret's witness was in a federal record. The silence had been named, dated, entered, and preserved. That did not heal everything, but it changed what could be denied. Maya opened the car door and looked once more toward the building. The work was not finished. It had finally become impossible to ignore. By mid-morning, Flight 441 had a wall of its own. Maya stood before it with a marker in her hand, staring at the timeline taped across the glass. Denver departure, first pressure note, climb deviation, crew message, diversion to Omaha, flight attendant injury, maintenance query, internal draft report, Sloan call, final report, settlement, archive. The paper trail did not shout. That was what made it worse. It whispered in clean corporate language. Sensor irregularity, crew caution, minor deviation, no continuing concern, closed. Maya circled the phrase, no continuing concern so hard the marker squeaked against the glass. Agent Monroe watched her. That one bothering you? They all bother me. That one more. Maya capped the marker. Because someone wrote it, after knowing there was a continuing concern. Monroe nodded toward the table where Harold Bennett's original notes lay in protective sleeves. Bennett's call log says he pushed back twice. Twice was not enough. Monroe looked at her. Maya heard herself and closed her eyes for a second. That came out wrong. No, Monroe said. It came out tired. Maya opened her eyes. Tired doesn't get to be unfair. No. But it explains the edge. Before Maya could answer, Daniel Price entered with a young woman in an Atlantic Crown maintenance jacket. She was short, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun and grease still under one thumbnail. Daniel looked nervous but determined. Inspector William, this is Erin Salazar. She worked Omaha receiving maintenance on Flight 441. Maya turned fully toward her. You were there? Erin nodded. I was an apprentice then. Lowest person in the hangar. Mostly fetched tools and tried not to be invisible. What do you remember? Erin looked at the wall. Her eyes moved over the timeline and stopped at the diversion time. The aircraft came in hot. Not emergency hot, but tense. Crew didn't talk much. Harlan was angry. He kept saying the system's oversensitive. Did maintenance inspect hydraulic system too? Yes. Erin swallowed. My lead found staining near the actuator junction. Not a stream. More like a seep. He wanted the part replaced before release. Who was the lead? Marcus Vale. He retired 6 months later. Monroe was already typing. Alive? Yes. In Nebraska, I think. Maya asked. What happened to the recommendation? Erin looked down. Changed. To monitor. By Marcus. No. Who? Erin hesitated. Daniel said gently. Erin. She looked up. Kessler called. Then Sloan called. Then the hangar manager came out and told Marcus, we are not turning a diversion into a mechanical event unless the part is on the floor in pieces. Marcus argued. Harlan heard and said, this is why apprentices shouldn't be allowed to scare old men. Maya's eyes narrowed. He said that to you? Yes, ma'am. And Marcus Vale, he told Harlan. She reads leaks better than you read people. Daniel almost smiled. Erin did not. 2 weeks later, Marcus was moved off line work. They called it semi-retirement. I never saw him touch another Atlantic Crown aircraft. Maya turned to Monroe. Find Marcus Vale. Already on it. Erin reached into her jacket and pulled out a folded photograph. I kept this. She handed it to Maya. The photo showed a section of hydraulic assembly beneath bright hangar lights. A faint, dark stain marked the metal seam. Maya studied it. You took this? Marcus told me to, he said. When men with clean shoes tell you not to trust your eyes, take a picture. Monroe held out an evidence sleeve. We'll preserve it. Erin's hand trembled as she passed it over. I thought I was crazy for years. Every time the story came up, they said it was nothing. Maya's voice softened. You were not crazy. You were early. Erin covered her mouth with one hand and nodded. That sentence moved through the room and landed on Daniel too. Maya saw it happen. He stood a little straighter. At 11:20, Monroe's team reached Marcus Vale in a small town outside Lincoln. He answered by video from a garage filled with tools, aircraft manuals, and an old dog sleeping under a workbench. When Maya introduced herself, he laughed once. Well, I wondered when the sky would finally send somebody back for that bird. You remember Flight 441? Maya asked. Remember? Marcus leaned closer to the camera. Inspector, I still have the part number written on the inside cover of my Bible. Evelyn Shaw, who had come in quietly during the call, looked stricken. Marcus continued. That aircraft had a hydraulic seep, not enough to make a dramatic picture for the evening news, but enough that any mechanic with honest eyes would say, replace before release. I said that. Erin said that. Dispatch didn't like it. Harlan didn't like it. Sloan sure as hell didn't like it. Monroe asked, were you pressured to change the report? Marcus grinned without humor. Pressured? No. Pressure is when somebody asks hard. They didn't ask. They explained my future. What did they say? That I could finish my last years doing training audits in a room with no aircraft. Or I could be reasonable. Maya asked. Were you reasonable? I signed nothing. That was my little rebellion. They found someone else. Do you know who? Kessler processed it. But the release came from above him. Greer? Marcus looked at her for a long moment. I never heard Greer's voice, but I heard Sloan say, the chief knows we can't keep bleeding headlines. You tell me what that means. Evelyn sat down behind Maya. Marcus noticed her on the screen. You running the airline now? For the moment, Evelyn said. Then here's free advice. Don't ask mechanics to make airplanes match press releases. Airplanes don't care about press releases. Evelyn's eyes filled, but she held his gaze. You should not have been punished. No, Marcus said. I shouldn't have. Erin shouldn't have been taught to doubt her eyes either. Erin, standing near the wall, started crying silently. Marcus saw her. His face changed completely. That you, Salazar? Erin wiped her face. Yes, sir. Still in maintenance? Yes, sir. Good. I was afraid they'd run the good sense out of you. She laughed through tears. Almost. Almost doesn't count. The call ended with Marcus agreeing to provide a sworn statement and copies of his personal notes. The moment the screen went dark, Evelyn stood. I need to make a call. Maya stopped her. To whom? The board. We are expanding compensation and repair to Flight 441 personnel. Marcus Vale. Erin Salazar. The injured flight attendant. Anyone tied to the rewritten report. Maya studied her. Do it before the media asks. That is the plan. No, Maya said. Do it because it is owed. Evelyn nodded once. Because it is owed. She left the room. By afternoon, Flight 441 had broken open 3 more files. One in Phoenix, one in Newark, one in Charlotte. Each had a different aircraft, a different crew, a different phrase polished to reduce concern. But the structure was familiar now. Warning, pressure, downgrade, closure, silence. The investigation room filled with names of people who had once been alone. At 4:05, Naomi Brooks arrived from Washington. Maya found her in the hallway, holding a backpack and looking like she had run from one life into another without stopping to pack properly. Naomi? The young woman straightened. Inspector William, I'm sorry to just show up. I tried emailing, but then I saw the news about the old case and She took a breath. My instructor worked at Atlantic Crown before he taught at my school. He used the phrase green closeout in class once. Said it was how real operators keep the system moving. Maya felt every conversation in the hallway fade. Do you remember the context? Yes, ma'am. I wrote it down because it sounded wrong. Naomi unzipped her backpack and pulled out a notebook. She flipped quickly, then turned it around. There, in careful handwriting, was a lecture note dated 6 weeks earlier. Green closeout. Field practice when system drift remains below mandatory threshold, but operational need requires release. Know who approves. Do not put concerns in writing unless required. Maya, read the last sentence twice. Do not put concerns in writing unless required. Naomi's voice shook. I thought maybe I misunderstood. Maya looked at her. You didn't. Monroe appeared beside them. We'll need that notebook. Naomi held it tighter for 1 second, then handed it over. Can I get it back? It has all my coursework, Maya said. We'll copy the relevant page and return it. Naomi nodded, then looked embarrassed. Maya's expression softened. You are not trouble. You are documentation. Naomi gave a small, startled laugh. Then her eyes moved toward the investigation room, where Daniel, Aaron, Miguel, and others were visible through the glass. So this is what happens? Naomi asked. What? When people stop keeping it in their heads. Maya looked at the room. Yes, she said. It becomes harder to bury. That evening, Evelyn made the second public announcement. She stood alone this time. No male executive behind her. No lawyer leaning toward the microphone. We have identified evidence that the issues surrounding Flight 782 were connected to prior reporting failures, including a diversion 18 months ago involving Flight 441. We are reopening that file and any related personnel, maintenance, and safety records. We will contact affected employees and passengers. We will not describe these matters as isolated. That word is no longer accurate. Maya watched from the side. That word is no longer accurate. It was not poetry. It was better. It was usable truth. Afterward, as reporters shouted questions, Evelyn stepped away from the podium and came straight to Maya. I said it. You did. I wanted to say more. You will when evidence supports it. Evelyn nodded. You sound like Monroe. Good. Across the room, Naomi sat with Aaron Salazar. Both of them bent over the notebook, comparing training notes and maintenance language. Daniel and Marcus Vale were speaking by video. The old mechanic and the young technician already arguing about whether modern tablets made people lazy. Miguel was on the phone with his father, speaking Spanish too fast for Maya to follow, but smiling in a way that needed no translation. Margaret Wells appeared at Maya's side with a plastic container. Maya looked at it. What is that? Peach cobbler. Maya stared. You actually made cobbler? Ruth said you doubted me. I did not doubt you. You absolutely did. Maya took the container. It was still warm. Margaret looked through the glass at the crowded room. More came. Yes, Ruth was right. She usually is. Margaret's voice softened. You know this will hurt before it heals. Maya looked at the people inside. It already does. But they're not alone now. No, Maya said. They're not. Her watch pinged. Grandma Ruth. Roots? Maya smiled and typed back. Deeper than we thought. Ruth replied. They usually are. Keep digging, but remember to plant something too. Maya looked again at Naomi and Aaron, at Daniel and Marcus, at Miguel standing straighter than he had days earlier. Maybe that was what this room had become. Not just an excavation, a planting. Flight 441 had been buried for 18 months. Flight 782 had been stopped in 5 seconds. Between them lay years of warnings, fear, and careful language designed to make danger sound manageable. But now the language was changing. Leak meant leak. Retaliation meant retaliation. Falsified meant falsified. And truth, once spoken by enough people, no longer sounded like accusation. It sounded like repair beginning. The lesson from Maya Williams' story is simple but powerful. Injustice often survives because good people stay quiet, and unsafe systems grow stronger when fear is mistaken for discipline. A title, a uniform, or a loud voice does not make someone right. Real authority comes from truth, responsibility, and the courage to protect others, even when standing up costs you something. Maya did not stay in that cockpit to prove she was important. She stayed because the truth mattered, the passengers mattered, and the next person without a badge deserved a safer room to walk into. Thank you for listening to this story until the very end. If it moved you, made you think, or reminded you of something you have witnessed in real life, I would truly love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment and let me know how you felt about the storytelling, the characters, and the message. Your feedback helps this channel improve every single day. And if you have a powerful true story, a meaningful experience, or an idea that deserves to be told, please share it with the channel. Your story might be the next one that inspires someone to speak up, stand firm, and believe that justice is still worth fighting for. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.